Chapter 311. Heavenly Sea Soul Marrow. Yi Guqin and Mu Xingzu were both stunned for a moment. This blue crystal pendant was just an accessory that Mu Xingzu happened to fancy at a stall. At that time, Mu Xingzu did not realize that this pendant was extraordinary. She just liked it. Not to mention Mu Xingzu, even Yi Guqin ignored this pendant before and did not notice its uniqueness. Yingning held the Heavenly Sea Soul Marrow in her hand, and there was a trace of reminiscence and infatuation in her beautiful eyes. A smile unconsciously appeared at the corner of her mouth, which made her soft and beautiful face even more beautiful. "Would you like to hear a story?" Yingning said in a faint tone. Yi Guqin and Mu Xingzu were both silent, which meant that they agreed. Once upon a time, in the Void Sword sect, there was a god-favored girl. She was born extraordinary. She was an 8th-class god-favored girl, and her brain contained the immortal soul pearl. She was born with a soul that could turn into a primordial spirit. It was precisely because of this that this proud woman had always looked down on others, and no one could compare with her talent. Not a single man in the sect caught her eye. She even felt that perhaps she could only spend the rest of her life in boring cultivation by herself. Until one day, when she was cultivating outside, she met a man who was seriously injured. He was a sword practitioner, and the woman took pity on him and brought him back to the Void Sword sect. That man's surname was Yi. Yingning said and looked at Yi Guqin. Yi Guqin's eyes revealed a strange light, and his mind moved slightly. He finally understood why Yingning looked at him with that kind of reminiscence and infatuation when he was at the bridge. As the man's cultivation recovered, his strength gradually became known to the woman. The woman never knew that in this world, there was someone with higher talent and strength than her. The man's strength was very strong, and he could be called a god-favored one, but his character was very gentle. He was neither arrogant nor impatient, and there was always a warm smile on his face. Over time, the man and the woman spent a long time together. They watched the stars together on the Green Mountain, chatted casually in the pavilion, and watched the flowing water pass by on the stone bridge. Unknowingly, the woman had already fallen deeply in love with that man and was unable to extricate herself. Until one day, when the man's injuries were healed and his strength had increased, he was about to leave. He said that he came from Sky Mountain and will eventually return to Sky Mountain. This is his destiny. The woman refused. She wailed and cried. She felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. She never knew that this was how it felt to fall in love with someone. The man said, "If two people love each other for a long time, there's no need to be together all the time." That day, the man stood at the bridge and said goodbye to the woman. He gave the woman a blue crystal pendant because he knew that the woman liked the color blue and always wore a blue dress. He also said that he would definitely come back. That was his vow. The woman looked at the man's back as he left. She held the blue crystal pendant in her hand and sobbed. From then on, the woman stood at the bridge, waiting and waiting. She waited until the sea turned into mulberry fields, until the mountains turned into barren mountains, until the rivers dried up, but he never came back. Later, the Void Sword sect experienced a great change. The woman died in the accident. Because of the immortal soul pearl, her primordial spirit could be preserved forever, but the blue crystal pendant was lost. After many years, the woman, who only had her primordial spirit left, wandered like a lonely soul all day long. She didn't leave, and she couldn't leave the Void Sword realm in the form of her primordial spirit. The most common thing she did was to stand at the bridge and faintly say, "The blue bridge has been broken for 1,000 years, and Junwen has yet to return. You said that you would come back, but you broke your vow. And I turned into a lonely soul, standing at the bridge for 100 years, 1,000 years. The world has changed, the wind and rain has not changed, and I have always been waiting for your figure to appear." As Yingning spoke, her beautiful eyes looked faintly into the distance, and tears fell. Her tears were even clearer than the Heavenly Sea Soul Marrow. Sob, sob. Mu Xingzhu's face was covered in tears as she listened to the touching story. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Yi Guqin's face also had a trace of disappointment. After experiencing Situ Hongxue and Su Jianshi, he understood this feeling best. This might be the so-called fate playing tricks on people. This is my story. The tears at the corners of Ying Ning's eyes evaporated, and she held the heavenly sea soul marrow tightly. Yi Guqin's many doubts finally had an answer. Wu. Senior Ying Ning, your story is too sad. Mu Xingzu sobbed. Sad? Maybe, but in my memories, I'm more happy with him. Ying Ning said, looking at Yi Guqin with her beautiful eyes. Do you know, Yi Guqin, you are very much like him. Not only because both of you share the same surname, but also because both of you have the same temperament, a kind of pride that is as sharp as a sword. I think it is because of this that he decided to return to Sky Mountain. Yi Guqin's voice was filled with endless nostalgia. Sky Mountain. What kind of place is that? Yi Guqin was curious. He had always been curious about this predecessor who also had the surname Yi and was also a sword cultivator. I don't know where Sky Mountain is, but from what he said, it is a mountain at the end of the Nantian region. A group of people who are crazy about swords live on the mountain, the end of the Nantian region. Yi Guqin frowned slightly. He thought of his vague memory of his father and what his aunt, Xuansu, had said. When you can defeat Gu Xiaoyang and truly step into the vast world of the Nantian region, you can find traces of your father, surname Yi, Sky Mountain, father. Is it a coincidence, or is there a connection? Yi Guqin had more doubts. Senior Ying Ning, what do you plan to do next? Mu Xingzu asked. I want to pass on the immortal soul pearl and soul sword intent to you, Ying Ning said as she looked at Mu Xingzu. Ah. If you lose the immortal soul pearl, won't your primordial spirit collapse? If that's the case, I'd rather not have this opportunity, Mu Xingzu said hurriedly. Hearing Mu Xingzu's words, Ying Ning's eyes were filled with gentleness and satisfaction. She said, it's no problem. You brought me this heavenly sea soul essence. After I pass on the immortal soul pearl to you, my primordial spirit will reside in the heavenly sea soul essence. In exchange, I will pass on the opportunity to you, but I need you to take me away from here and go to Sky Mountain to look for him. There seemed to be a hint of joy in Ying Ning's voice as she spoke. She did not care that he had broken his vow or that he had let her down for 1,000 years. She only wanted to preserve her remnant soul and go to Sky Mountain to see him again. She would be satisfied. Senior, as long as I have the ability, I will definitely help you. Mu Xingzu's eyes were still a little red as she clenched her fists. Ying Ning smiled faintly and nodded. She turned to look at Yi Guqin and said, Yi Guqin, although you can't get my opportunity, you have passed the test after all. If you have any needs, I will help you if possible. Yi Guqin pondered and said, I heard that there is the heavenly thunder in the Nether Sword realm. It is very important to me. Are you talking about the thunder tide? Ying Ning said faintly. Senior, you know about it? Yi Guqin's eyes lit up. The thunder tide is a training ground for the disciples of the sword faction. There is indeed the heavenly thunder in it. Now that things have changed, it is useless to leave the heavenly thunder there. Perhaps this item can help you obtain the heavenly thunder. Ying Ning waved her hand and a jade talisman fell into Yi Guqin's hand. Chapter 312. This is, Yi Guqin looked at the jade talisman in his hand. The surface of the jade talisman was silver and seemed to be engraved with thunder patterns. This is the guiding thunder talisman. It can absorb all kinds of thunder power. If you take this talisman and enter the depths of the thunder tide, you may have a chance to absorb the exotic thunder, Ying Ning said. Thank you, Senior. Yi Guqin put away the guiding thunder talisman. He was still thinking about how to absorb and refine the exotic thunder when he arrived at the thunder tide. Now that he had the guiding thunder talisman, the problem was solved. Ying Ning looked at Yi Guqin, her beautiful eyes shining. In the next moment, she took out the indestructible soul pearl again and performed a trick. A bead that was completely formed by soul power split from the indestructible soul pearl. The soul power generated by this pearl was far less than that of the indestructible soul pearl, but it was still very powerful. After doing this, Ning seemed to be tired. Senior, this is... Ye Guqin and Mu Xingzu were puzzled. This is the sub-pearl of the indestructible soul pearl. Although it doesn't have the characteristic of being indestructible, and its soul power is only 1% of the indestructible soul pearl, it's still a rare treasure. Ye Guqin, this is for you. Ning waved her hand, and the sub-pearl directly disappeared between Ye Guqin's eyebrows. Ye Guqin immediately felt that the sub-pearl of the indestructible soul pearl was floating in his mind, constantly releasing warm and pure soul power. Obviously, this sub-pearl was very beneficial to the cultivation of soul power. Senior, why do you do this? Ye Guqin sighed. He could see the fatigue on Ning's face after splitting the sub-pearl. Maybe it's because your temperament is very similar to his. Ning looked at Ye Guqin, and the corners of her mouth curved into a smile. Senior, one of our companions is still trapped in the stone bridge, Mu Xingzu said hesitantly. Is it her? Ning waved her hand again, and Zither Fairy's figure directly escaped from the stone bridge. This is... Zither Fairy's face was filled with confusion. After some explanation, Zither Fairy finally understood the whole story. Zither Fairy, what trial did you encounter on the stone bridge? Ye Guqin asked casually. Zither Fairy was silent. She glanced at Ye Guqin, and her beautiful face suddenly flushed with shyness. Then she lowered her eyelashes and said with a trace of panic, I didn't encounter anything. Ye Guqin nodded slightly and didn't say anything. You must be training in the way of the Guqin. Since you're Xingzhu's companion, I'll give you this Guqin. I'm going to leave this place anyway, so it's useless for me to keep it. Ning waved her hand and a Guqin that shone with jade-green light landed before the Guqin fairy. This is a supreme-grade mystical rune divine weapon. Zither Fairy's eyes were filled with joy. To her, this was already considered a very good opportunity. This trip was not in vain. Alright, Xingzhu will stay here to pass on my immortal soul orb and soul sword essence. You can leave now. As for those trapped on the stone bridge, after you leave, I'll let them leave as well, Ning said. Ye Guqin and the others nodded. Ning promised to only release Pan Shuelyan and the others after they left. This was already considered taking care of them. As for letting Ning kill Pan Shuelyan and the others, Ye Guqin wouldn't say such a thing. As long as he could obtain the unusual thunder and break through to the next level, Pan Shuelyan and the others were nothing in Ye Guqin's eyes. After that, Mu Xingzu followed Ning into a cave in the barren mountain to pass on the opportunity. As for Ye Guqin and Zither Fairy, they were directly sent out of this place. Not long after, Pan Shuelyan and the others who were trapped on the stone bridge and failed the trial were also sent out of the stone bridge. Pan Shuelyan and the others suddenly realized that they were still on the other side of the bridge. At this moment, the dark blue stone bridge was bursting with light. Even the dried-up riverbed was rising with a series of lights, as if protecting the pavilion in the barren mountain. Pan Shuelyan and the others didn't look too good to begin with. However, when they felt the waves of soul fluctuations coming from the barren mountain, their faces became extremely pale. Someone has obtained the primordial soul lady's inheritance. Pan Shuelyan was so angry that her ample chest heaved up and down. She gritted her teeth. Obviously, their plan had failed again. Not only did they fail to obtain the primordial soul lady's inheritance, but they also lost track of Ye Guqin. Whether it's Ye Guqin, Zither Fairy, or that girl in the Qi refinement realm, whoever obtained the inheritance is detestable. Prince Yuani's face was also extremely gloomy. This time, they had suffered a double loss. They came here for nothing and gained nothing. Are you all willing to leave just like this? Pan Shuelyan's beautiful eyes flashed with a bitter cold light. What else can we do? This place has been sealed and we can't enter. We're destined to not obtain the opportunity and inheritance, Fang Chen said coldly. Even if we can't obtain it, we can't let Ye Guqin and the others get it. If we spread the news about this place, Pan Shulian's tone was inexplicable. If everyone knows about this place, it'll be difficult for us to obtain the opportunity, Prince Yuani said with a frown. So what? Anyway, we can't find them now. Let's spread the news and ask everyone to come here and besiege them. I don't believe that Yi Guchen and the others can escape. Pan Shulian's tone was very vicious. Although she was beautiful, she had a vicious heart. Fine, that's all we can do. Even if we can't obtain the opportunity, if we can kill Yi Guchen and the others, we'll have gained something. Prince Yuani thought about it and finally agreed. Alright then. The four of us will spread the news separately. I'm sure there'll be a good show to watch soon. Pan Shulian's face was full of strategizing, treating Yi Guchen and the others as turtles in a jar. After a round of discussion, the four of them scattered in different directions. Vaguely, there seemed to be dark clouds gathering and a storm was about to rise. On the other side, Yi Guchen and Zither Fairy had already left the stone bridge. Young Master Yi, what are you going to do next? Zither Fairy asked. My original purpose in coming to the Void Sword Realm was to find the heavenly thunder. Next, I should be going to the Thunder Tide, Yi Guchen said in a low voice. Then Zither Fairy can go with young Master Yi, Zither Fairy said. Yi Guchen nodded. Although the Zither Fairy was not on the same level as Chen Yi or Ji Ling, she was not considered weak either. Furthermore, she had received a supreme-grade mystical pattern divine weapon, the ancient Zither, from Ying Ning. Her strength had also increased greatly. Then, Yi Guchen took out a communication jade slip and contacted Yi Xia and the others. Sword Master Yi, you're fine. Yi Xia sent a message. Let's find a place to meet up and then go to the Thunder Tide, Yi Guchen said. Then, Yi Guchen and Yi Xia decided on a place. He and Zither Fairy rushed to the place where they would meet up with Yi Xia. On the other side, there were also 3 figures flying towards the area where the lightning tide was. The person in the lead had long black hair and carried black and white swords on his back. He looked down on everything. It was Xian Hao of the Limitless Sword Sect. Chapter 313. At this moment, the emotionless expression on Xian Hao's face had disappeared and was replaced by a faint gloominess. Previously, he was guarding the periphery of the formation. After the formation stabilized, he did not see Yi Guchen's figure. Xian Hao was unable to determine whether Yi Guchen had been blasted into smithereens by the formation or if he had luckily escaped through a teleportation formation. However, no matter what the result was, Xian Hao was unable to accept it. As the top genius of the Limitless Sword Sect's Sun Moon Hall, there were very few geniuses in the entire Saint Origin dynasty who could be compared to him. It could be said that Xian Hao had always been admired by everyone throughout his cultivation journey. He had never encountered any setbacks or losses. However, in the Void Sword Realm, Yi Guchen, whose true qi had been crippled, had snatched away his opportunities twice in a row. No matter if it was the king-level sword art or the bronze pill furnace, they were both great opportunities. Before Yan Wushuang, Gu Zun, the young war emperor and the others came, Xian Hao thought that no one could compete with him. However, in his eyes, Yi Guchen, who was like an ant, had snatched his opportunities time and time again. Even someone as calm as Xian Hao did not have a good expression on his face. However, the only thing that comforted him was that there was still an opportunity waiting for him in another place. If Yi Guchen is still alive, he won't be able to escape from me. However, I still have to go and collect the unusual lightning. If what Xian Mo said is true, the unusual lightning should be similar to the sword art. It is very compatible with my void sword essence, Xian Hao thought. He turned his head to look at Xian Mo and said indifferently, Xian Mo, are you sure it's in this direction? Yes, yes, Xian Mo quickly nodded when he felt Xian Hao's cold tone. His back was drenched in cold sweat. He knew that Xian Hao's mood was definitely not good. As for the remaining person, it was Murong Ditian. After Xian Hao entered the lightning tide, he and Xian Mo would guard the periphery. However, Murong Ditian's face was dejected and he did not have the arrogance of the top genius of the Beichen mansion. Xian Hao glanced at Murong Ditian indifferently and ignored him. On the other side, Yi Guqin and Zither Fairy finally met up with Yi Xia in a desolate forest. Yi Guqin, let's go quickly. No one should have been there yet. Yi Xia saw Yi Guqin and Zither Fairy arrive and said. Yi Guqin nodded. Without any hesitation, he followed Yi Xia's lead and rushed towards the lightning tide area. In a polar region near the edge of the Void Sword Realm, there was a mountain peak that was more than 10,000 feet high. There wasn't a single rock or plant on this mountain peak. Its entire body seemed to be made of silver, as if it was made of silver metal. Around this silver mountain, the ground was also silvery white. There were no demonic beasts, no plants, and of course, no one would come here. Dark clouds gathered at the top of the silver mountain all year round. Thunder rumbled as countless bolts of lightning struck the mountain from the dark clouds. The silver metal mountain seemed to be able to conduct electricity. The surging power of lightning flowed down the mountain peak like a tide and finally landed on the surrounding ground. The scene was majestic and strange. Not long after, 3 figures appeared at the periphery of the mountain peak. They were Yi Guqin and the other 2. Luckily, no one else came here. Yi Xia looked around and said. Is that the lightning tide area? Yi Guqin saw the silver mountain peak at a glance. The power of lightning was like a waterfall, rushing down from the top of the mountain. At a glance, this scene really did look like a thunder tide waterfall. I think the heavenly thunder should be in the dark clouds at the top of the mountain. Yi Xia guessed. Yi Guqin nodded in agreement. He also knew why there were so few people in the lightning tide area. There was nothing worth exploring in the surroundings. Moreover, the lightning tide was so fierce that ordinary people could not withstand it. According to Ying Ning, the lightning tide area was a training ground. Obviously, it was not so easy to reach the top of the mountain. But no matter what, Yi Guqin would not give up, because the heavenly thunder was his only hope of breaking through. Let's go. Yi Guqin did not hesitate and rushed towards the silver mountain with Yi Xia and Qin Fairy. The closer they got to the silver mountain, the more Yi Guqin could feel the numbness coming from the soles of his feet. It's still so far away, but I already have this feeling. It seems that the heavenly thunder should be stronger than the purple lightning nether thunder. Yi Guqin's eyes were filled with excitement. As long as this heavenly thunder was stronger than the purple lightning nether thunder, then he had a high chance of breaking through. The closer they got to the silver mountain, the stronger the power of the lightning became. Finally, Yi Guqin and the others finally reached the foot of the mountain. At this point, the power of lightning had already rushed down like a tide. Even Yi Xia and Zither Fairy needed to spread out their true qi to resist this power. Although Yi Guqin could not use his genuine qi, the power of lightning could be used to temper his body. Yi Guqin, just like this, withstanding the power of lightning, rushed towards the top of the mountain. I actually feel that my genuine qi is becoming more and more pure under the power of lightning. Yi Xia's eyes were filled with a strange light as he said in surprise. I can feel it too. This is indeed a rare place to train. Zither Fairy also spoke, her tone filled with surprise. Yi Guqin's body was also tempered. His whole body was numb, and his muscles and bones became more compact and strong under this kind of tempering. And just when Yi Guqin and the others had climbed about 1/5 of the way up the mountain. Outside the giant mountain, 3 figures flew over. It was Xian Hao and the other 2. That person is. Xian Hao and the others saw the 3 people who were climbing the giant mountain at a glance. They almost completely ignored Yi Xia and Qin Fairy, and their gazes were all focused on Yi Guqin alone. Yi Gu Chen. When Murong Ditian saw Yi Guqin's figure, his aura burst out uncontrollably. His eyes instantly turned blood red, and he spoke word by word as if he wanted to eat Yi Guqin's flesh and blood. His hatred for Yi Guqin was already so deep that it could not be washed away even with all the water in the 5 seas. It was a hatred that would not end until one of them was dead. However, Xian Hao's face did not have the slightest bit of anger. Instead, it had a trace of unexpected joy. Ha! Yi-Guchen, you didn't die. This is really delightful. I thought that you would die in that formation and not even ashes would remain. But this is also good. I will take back the opportunity that belongs to me. Xian Hao revealed a trace of a rare smile, and his smile was very carefree. He had thought that Yi-Guchen had died and his Tao had dissipated, along with his opportunity. But now that he saw that Yi-Guchen was actually still alive and right in front of him, how could Xian Hao not be happy? He could not be happier. It's Xian Hao. When Yi Xia and the others saw this, their expressions changed abruptly. He also saw Xian Mo behind Xian Hao, and he knew that it must be Xian Mo who told Xian Hao that there was heavenly thunder here. Let's go up. Facing such a dangerous situation, Yi-Guchen's expression did not have the slightest bit of panic. He sped up and flew towards the top of the giant silver mountain. Yi-Guchen, you are just a turtle in a jar. Xian Hao and the others also started to fly up from the bottom of the giant mountain. Chapter 314. The silver giant peak was silver white all over and was shining brightly. And in the dark clouds above the peak, thunder rolled, and endless thunder fell like a waterfall, endlessly crashing down from the peak like a torrent. Yi-Guchen and the other two were in front, while Xian Hao and the other two were chasing after them from behind. As their figures were getting higher and higher, Yi Xia and Zither Fairy gradually had sweat on their faces, and the genuine qi in their Dantian sea of qi seemed to be faintly exhausted. On the other hand, Yi-Guchen was under greater pressure at the moment because he could not use genuine qi to block it. Now he was relying on the strength of his perfect body to persist until now. Behind them, Xian Hao's speed was very fast. The turbulent genuine qi of his divine soul 9 changes spread out, making him like a cannonball, quickly flying up against the thunder tide. Behind him, Xian Mo and Murong Ditian were slightly slower. Yi-Guchen, you are just doing useless work now. Xian Hao's face was full of confidence. He seemed to have seen the scene where he killed Yi-Guchen, and then took the king-level sword art and the bronze furnace. It is still unknown who will win. Yi-Guchen said coldly without a trace of fear. Oh, the struggle of an ant. Xian Hao did not say anything more, and his speed increased again. As time went by, they were getting closer and closer to the peak. Yi-Guchen and the others had already climbed 3/5 of the entire silver giant peak, and there were still 2/5 of the way to the peak. However, at this point, the impact of the thunder tide they had to endure was even more intense than the thunder tide they had to endure before. Because this place of thunder tide was originally the place where the disciples of the Void Sword sect practiced in ancient times, the higher they went, the greater the pressure and impact. Lord Yi, I feel a little weak. Beside Yi-Guchen, Zither Fairy was a little breathless, and said with difficulty. Her beautiful face was a little pale at the moment, and her body was dripping with sweat. The genuine qi that spread out was much weaker than before. Not only was Zither Fairy like this, Yi Xia on the other side was also starting to become unstable and unable to hold on. As for Yi-Guchen, although he was also enduring the extreme impact of the lightning tide, he was still able to withstand it with his willpower and temperament. Yi-Guchen also discovered that as the power of thunder and lightning struck his body, his perfect body seemed to have developed some resistance. He now had some adaptability and resistance. If you can't hold on any longer, escape to the left and right, Yi-Guchen said in a low voice. Hearing this, Yi Xia and Zither Fairy both secretly nodded. They knew that Yi-Guchen was afraid that Xian Hao would capture them and use them to threaten Yi-Guchen. As long as Yi-Guchen and Zither Fairy could safely escape, then Yi-Guchen would naturally have his own methods to deal with Xian Hao. Young Master Yi-Guchen, you must be careful. Zither Fairy's beautiful eyes looked at Yi-Guchen with a hint of hidden emotion. She didn't tell Yi-Guchen what test she encountered in the illusion on the stone bridge. In fact, Zither Fairy didn't encounter any test. She was just immersed in the illusion and leaning on the shoulder of a young man. As for that young man, he was so close to her, yet so difficult to reach. Perhaps only young Master Yi has such courage to face Xian Hao in this state without retreating at all. Zither Fairy sighed in her heart. She found that compared to Yiguchen, those geniuses who fawned over her were so unbearable. However, Zither Fairy didn't say anything in the end. Her feelings were just like her gentleness, silent and speechless. Yiguchen looked at Zither Fairy, and a light flashed in his eyes. He sighed in his heart. But he didn't say anything. Many times, not saying anything was actually a kind of help. Master Yi Jianzong, be careful, Yi Xia said. Then, Yi Xia and Zither Fairy retreated in two different directions, one left and one right. As for Yiguchen, he didn't show any signs of leaving, and continued to ascend the mountain peak. At the back, Xian Hao saw this and smiled faintly. Yiguchen, are you prepared to give it your all? That's good too. He turned and said to Xian Mo and Murong Ditian, you two go chase after those two. As for Yiguchen, let me deal with him. But Murong Ditian's expression froze, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness. Xian Hao's eyes darkened as he looked at Murong Ditian. Yes. Veins popped out on Murong Ditian's forehead. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He lowered his head slightly, and a trace of bone-deep jealousy flashed in his eyes. Not only Yiguchen, but also you. Xian Hao, one day, I will let you have a taste of being stepped on by others. Murong Ditian roared in his heart. After that, Xian Mo and Murong Ditian chased after Yi Xia and Zither Fairy respectively. Xian Hao, on the other hand, had an indifferent and relaxed expression. He was like a cat playing with a mouse as he stared at Yiguchen. There's still 1/5 of the distance left. Yiguchen slowly raised his head, and there was a trace of fatigue in his tone. The power of lightning here was already extremely strong. If it was an ordinary divine soul expert, he or she would be instantly swept down and be severely injured. Indestructible diamond body. At this point, Yiguchen couldn't withstand it with just his perfect physical body. Thus, he directly activated the indestructible diamond body. Golden light burst out from his body, and he was like a golden god of war. His aura rose again, and he continued to ascend the mountain peak. Interesting. Xian Hao's eyes flashed when he saw this. Yiguchen's physical body and body refinement technique surprised him. However, Xian Hao's expression was still calm. He didn't think that Yiguchen would escape from his control. Finally, Yiguchen was only 100 feet away from the mountain peak. However, this 100 feet seemed to be even longer than the previous distance added together. Because this was very close to the mountain peak, it was naturally the place where the power of lightning was the most violent and explosive. Yiguchen, what other tricks do you have? Xian Hao shook his head and smiled. Yiguchen's eyes focused. In the next moment, he activated the power of the 5-colored golden core in his dantian. Buzz buzz, the 5-colored golden core trembled violently, and then a burst of 5 elements totem power gushed out. Among them, the fire element totem power representing the vermilion bird was the strongest, followed by the wood element totem power of the azure dragon totem. Other than that, the white tiger totem, the black tortoise totem, and the soaring snake totem were about the same. They only had a small portion of power. This was because Prince Yuani's heavenly sacred 5-element will contained limited 5 elements mystic power. Rumble. When Yiguchen activated the 5-colored golden core, a 5-colored divine radiance suddenly appeared on the surface of his body, making him look like a celestial being. With the power of the 5-colored totem, Yiguchen's speed soared again, and he swept directly toward the mountain peak. It's the power of the totem, but why? Xian Hao's calm face was also filled with surprise. Although he had come into contact with the power of the totem in the battle with the barbarian tribe Holy Sons and Holy Daughters, he did not have a deep understanding of it. However, the totem power that emerged from Yiguchen's body at this moment surprised Xian Hao. That was because the totem power gave off a very pure feeling. No matter what tricks you play, in the end, all the opportunities will belong to me, Xian Hao. Xian Hao snorted coldly, and the aura of the 9 changes of the godly soul completely erupted. At the same time, the peerless void sword essence and another slightly vague sword essence also erupted at the same time. Swoosh! Xianhao's body flashed in the void, and as he streaked across the air, there was an ear-piercing explosion. At this moment, Yi Guqin and Xianhao stepped onto the giant silver mountain peak almost at the same time. The heavenly thunder was close at hand. Chapter 3:15. Boom! Just as Yi Guqin stepped on the top of the silver giant peak, Xianhao also stepped on it. The moment they stepped onto the peak, the entire silver mountain trembled violently and let out a rumbling sound. This roaring vibration was like a kind of recognition. It represented that Yi Guqin and Xianhao were extraordinarily talented. Because even in the ancient Void Sword sect, there were not many geniuses who could reach the top. However, being able to reach the top did not mean that Yi Guqin and Xianhao's test was over. In fact, until this moment, the real test had just begun. Rumble. Above the silver giant peak, where the dark clouds gathered, the fierce thunder rolled like an angry dragon, as if Yi Guqin and Xianhao's reaching the top was a kind of blasphemy to its strength. Boom! Almost endless silver thunder and lightning poured from the dark clouds at an extremely fast speed, as if it was breaking the void, or as if a large river had broken its banks. The vast and boundless thunder tide was like the overturning of the Milky Way, pouring down on Yi Guqin and Xianhao who were on the silver peak. Sure enough, it's the extreme void mysterious thunder. Seeing this, Xianhao's calm face also showed a touch of unconcealable joy. Extreme void mysterious thunder. Not far away, Yi Guqin heard this and his eyes lit up. Among the exotic thunders of heaven and earth, the exotic thunders that could be called mysterious thunder were rare and powerful types, just like Qin Aoshi's ninth heaven mysterious thunder. Extreme void mysterious thunder, silver and blazing, with extreme speed, thunder like a dragon, breaking the void. At this moment, Xianhao's eyes were blazing. This extreme void mysterious thunder was also very compatible with his void sword essence attribute. This exotic thunder was naturally prepared for me. Xianhao's long black and white hair fluttered, and his eyes were blazing. On the other side, Yi Guqin's eyes were dignified, and at the same time, he was determined to get this extreme void mysterious thunder. Only by getting the exotic thunder can I unlock the seal of the Qi Sea. Only by getting the exotic thunder can I break through the cultivation realm. Only by obtaining the heavenly thunder can I completely pass the Sea of Qi Tribulation and cultivate the Sea of Qi Tribulation. So, even the heavens are unable to stop my sword sect today. At this moment, Yi Guqin also unleashed his aura, his eyes filled with disdain. What he and Xianhao were fighting for was this slim chance. Rumble. The lightning tide, which was as frightening as a heavenly river, finally descended. Yi Guqin instantly erupted with all his strength. Perfect physical body, Dracophant force, vigorous qi and blood, indestructible diamond body, five-colored totem force, even the heart-soft sword essence, the Azura sword essence, and even the embryonic form of the fire sword essence. There was also the incomparably powerful soul power and the bead that Ing Ning had given him in the center of his mind. At that moment, Yi Guqin used all the techniques he could think of, except for the vital energy that he couldn't use. Boom! An incomparably ferocious aura spread out from Yi Guqin's body, forming a dazzling barrier that collided with the boundless violent lightning tide. Poof! Almost at the moment of collision, Yi Guqin's figure was blasted back by dozens of feet. He spat out vermilion blood, dripping down his chin. However, his feet were still firmly planted into the ground, like a plant rooted to the ground, stabilizing his body. Yi Guqin knew that if he was blasted down from the peak by the lightning tide, he would no longer have the chance to fight for the ultimate void profound bomb. On the other side, Xianhao was also violently attacked by the lightning tide. He also tried his best to use his own techniques, the powerful vital energy of the 9 changes of the godly soul, the soul power of the sea of consciousness, the sword essence of the void, and even another vague sword essence. Even the black and white swords on his back, the dark yin sword and the dark yang sword, were used. The two swords crossed, blocking in front of Xian Hao like a shield. Even so, Xian Hao was still affected, and some blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. What a ferocious lightning tide, as expected of the ultimate void profound bomb. Ye Guqin must have been blasted down, but it doesn't matter. It won't be too late to catch him after I obtain the ultimate void profound bomb. Just as Xian Hao was thinking this, he turned his head slightly and saw Ye Guqin, who was clenching his teeth and persevering in the lightning tide. How is it possible, he? Xian Hao's eyes were filled with shock and confusion. One had to know that he and Ye Guqin were almost an entire realm apart. One was at the 9 changes of the godly soul, while the other was at the 9 refinement chi refinement realm. Even Xian Hao found it very difficult to withstand the ferocious lightning tide in front of him. Logically speaking, Ye Guqin should not have been able to withstand it. Why? The shock in Xian Hao's eyes turned into a serious look. That's right. Before this, Xian Hao had never looked Ye Guqin in the eye. Even though Ye Guqin had taken his opportunity, Xian Hao only thought that Ye Guqin was lucky and opportunistic. But now, Xian Hao had really begun to take Ye Guqin seriously and regarded him as an opponent. Ye Guqin, you have indeed exceeded my expectations, but this time, the outcome will not change. Xian Hao ignored Ye Guqin for the time being. He wanted to obtain the ultimate void profound bomb first, and then deal with Ye Guqin. Ye Guqin did not reply. In fact, he did not have the extra energy to speak. He only continued to move forward, slowly approaching the area directly below the dark clouds. Of course, that place was naturally the core of the lightning tide. The terrifying lightning power seemed to be able to tear everything apart. The ultimate void profound bomb was domineering to begin with. It possessed the speed of lightning and could shake the void at the same time. Xian Hao's figure had long surpassed Ye Guqin, and he was getting closer and closer to the area where the dark clouds gathered. On the other hand, although Ye Guqin had many moves at his disposal, he did not have true qi after all. His totemic power was only at the beginning, and he had not formed a sea of consciousness in his mind. Therefore, at this moment, Ye Guqin could not hold on any longer. The surface of his body had been cut by the ultimate void profound bomb, and blood was flowing out. His chest had been struck by the lightning, and it was charred black. The closer he got to the area where the dark clouds gathered, the more wounds there were on his body. From afar, he looked like a bloody man, and it was incomparably terrifying. You. At this moment, even Xian Hao looked at Ye Guqin with a trace of fear in his eyes. If an opponent only had a high cultivation level, that was not frightening. What was frightening was that this opponent also had inhuman tenacity and courage. That was what made one fearful. Ye Guqin, even I, Xian Hao, admire you for being able to hold on until now. Unfortunately, tenacity alone is not enough to accomplish anything. Xian Hao did not delay any longer, and directly unleashed his strength to the limit. His figure suddenly flickered, and then directly approached the area where the dark clouds gathered. The ultimate void profound bomb is in my hands. Xian Hao took out an ancient talisman. This ancient talisman manifested its power within the lightning, and released a strange guiding force, as if it wanted to absorb the ultimate void profound bomb in the dark clouds. This was naturally something that Xian Hao had prepared long ago to contain the ultimate void profound bomb. As the talisman was taken out, a ball of silver lightning within the dark clouds was also drawn down. The boundless lightning in the void was released from this ball of lightning. This ball of lightning was blazing with silver light. As lightning flashed, the void shook, and it sounded like an angry dragon. However, it was gradually drawn towards the ancient talisman. Ye Guqin, this time, the dust has settled. Xian Hao could not help but laugh heartily. Previously, Xian Hao had suffered 2 losses at Ye Guqin's hands, and a trace of flaw had appeared in his Dao heart. However, this time, Xian Hao finally breathed a sigh of relief. The opportunity of the ultimate void profound bomb belonged to him. I, Ye Guqin, will seize this bomb today. No one can stop me. Ye Guqin's eyes seemed to burn with flames. His blood and chi completely roared, and all of his power was released. There was a loud boom. A pair of boundlessly gorgeous fire wings were released from Yiguchen's back. He directly rose into the air, and faced the ball of silver lightning. Like a moth to a flame, he charged forward. Chapter 316. Yiguchen, you're courting death. The scene before his eyes was beyond Xian Hao's expectations. Even with his indifferent nature, there was a trace of surprise on his face. The fire wings on Yiguchen's back flapped, causing him to shoot towards the core of the extreme void profound bomb like a blazing meteor. This was akin to a moth flying into a flame. In Xian Hao's eyes, it was an act of courting death. Without any tricks or preparation, he directly approached the violent variant lightning. Moreover, it was the profound lightning, which was even more powerful. Even Xian Hao would not be able to do it. Because the instant he approached the profound lightning, he would be drowned by the lightning. However, Yiguchen did not care about his own safety and forcefully approached the extreme void profound bomb. In Xian Hao's eyes, this was an extremely foolish and overconfident act. Yiguchen, if you are really so foolish, then I have overestimated you. Xian Hao shook his head slightly with a sigh. Xian Hao had to admit that if they were at the same level, Yiguchen would be his greatest enemy. Unfortunately, just as Xian Hao was sighing, Yiguchen had already approached the silver lightning. Rumble. The variant lightning was born from heaven and earth and was an ownerless object. The moment Yiguchen approached, it naturally attracted the extreme void profound bomb's instinctive counterattack. Streaks of silver lightning were like silver whips that ruthlessly lashed towards Yiguchen's body. Even with various tricks, Yiguchen was still shaken to the point of coughing up blood. Scorch marks covered his entire body. No, it's not close enough. I need to be 100% confident. Yiguchen thought to himself. He did not care how injured he was. He only knew that he only had one chance to seize the extreme void profound bomb. If he failed, the extreme void profound bomb would be completely absorbed by the ancient talisman and then taken away by Xian Hao. At that time, Yiguchen would no longer have the slightest chance to seize the variant lightning from Xian Hao. How pitiful! There was a faint trace of pity in Xian Hao's eyes as he looked at Yiguchen, who was getting closer and closer to the extreme void profound bomb. It was like a winner's pity for a loser. I have the Na Lei talisman. Even if you're like a moth flying into a flame, you'll only end up losing your life in the end. Xian Hao sighed. In the end, Yiguchen's figure was only 10 feet away from the extreme void profound bomb. Just as the thunderous energy of the extreme void profound bomb was about to explode and drown Yiguchen, Yiguchen took out the guiding lightning talisman that Ying Ning had given him. Boom! Endless silver lightning flooded the area. Seeing Yiguchen's figure buried in the lightning, Xian Hao shook his head slightly and sighed. That sigh seemed to be a pity for the death of an opponent. Yiguchen from the sword sect, Xian Hao, admit that if your cultivation was similar to mine, then you would be a great enemy of mine. However, it's already impossible now. Xian Hao poured all of his true qi into the Na Lei talisman, wanting to completely absorb the extreme void profound bomb. Haowever, at this moment, the surging lightning that filled the sky seemed to abruptly shrink back like a receding tide. Xian Hao's eyes revealed a strange expression. The scene before him left him somewhat puzzled and confused. However, in the next moment, Xian Hao's gaze froze. His pupils abruptly contracted as he watched the figure that should have been torn apart by the lightning appear. The surging lightning that filled the sky converged towards the silver jade talisman in Yiguchen's hand like 100 rivers returning to the sea. The suction force emitted by the silver jade talisman was actually more than 10 times stronger than Xian Hao's Na Lei talisman. After all, the guiding lightning talisman was a gift from Ying Ning. Its effect naturally far surpassed Xian Hao's Na Lei talisman. In the short span of a few breaths, the silver ball of light and the lightning that filled the sky were all sucked into the guiding lightning talisman. The dark clouds that had gathered at the peak also dissipated at this moment. It was as if sunlight had shone down on Yiguchen's body that was covered in wounds. At this moment, a crack seemed to have appeared in Xian Hao's Dao heart as he looked at the youth in the air. Yiguchen glanced at Xian Hao and did not say anything unnecessary. He directly put away the guiding lightning talisman, flapped the vermilion bird wings, and shot towards the distant sky. This. Xian Hao seemed to have yet to recover his senses. His face was frozen and his eyes were wooden. The pity and sigh he had for Yiguchen just now had not even dissipated. However, Yiguchen's figure had already flown far away, along with the extreme void fire profound bomb. How hateful! Yiguchen! Xian Hao only managed to catch his breath after a few breaths of time. Xian Hao, who had always been indifferent and condescending, gradually turned ashen and purplish at this moment. As the saying went, things should not be done more than 3 times. However, Xian Hao had the great void fire sword wave, the bronze pill cauldron, and the extreme void fire profound bomb. The 3 great opportunities that Xian Hao had been determined to obtain had all been snatched away by Yiguchen. Xian Hao had thought that Yiguchen had gotten lucky the first 2 times. However, no one had interfered in the 3rd time. It was just the 2 of them, Yiguchen. And Yiguchen had still snatched away the opportunities that had originally belonged to him right under his nose. Yiguchen, even if you flee to the ends of the earth, you will not be able to escape. Xian Hao's eyes were tinged with a trace of blood red. He directly grabbed a large number of pills that replenished qi from his origin ring and stuffed them into his mouth. Then, he activated the sword will of the void and shot towards Yiguchen at top speed. If he could not catch up to Yiguchen, if he could not snatch back the opportunities that belonged to him from Yiguchen's hands, then, there would always be a crack in Xian Hao's cultivation Dao heart. This crack might not be able to cause too much of an impact now. However, in the future, when he tried to break through to a higher realm, it would create a heart demon, which would be a huge problem. Shoo! In the air, a figure with a pair of wings on his back streaked across the sky like a meteor, flying into the distance. Not far behind him, on the ground, a human figure was following closely behind with a ghostly speed. It was as if he was shuttling through the void. This scene was too eye-catching, and it was impossible to hide. Especially Yiguchen, who was flying in the air. He was like a clear target as he flew over, attracting the attention of disciples from various sections. There's actually someone in the air. Could it be an expert in the life and death chamber? No. Those wings, it's Yiguchen from the sword sect. Yiguchen, the Yiguchen who had lost all his qi but obtained a great opportunity. I heard that he took away all the bronze pill cauldrons from the pill palace. There are saint pills inside. As the commotion grew bigger and bigger. Not only Xian Hao, those who were attracted by Yiguchen's figure were also chasing after Yiguchen. In less than an hour, a large group of martial artists had gathered behind Yiguchen. There were martial artists from various sects and clans. These people had the same thought, which was to seize the opportunity in Yiguchen's hands. On the other hand, Xian Hao did not pay any attention to these people who were following him. This was because there was only one goal in his bloodshot eyes. It was Yiguchen. Yiguchen, you've caused a crack in my cultivation Dao heart. The only way to fix it is to seize all the opportunities you've obtained from your hands. Yiguchen had completely become Xian Hao's obsession. With so many people following behind me, it's impossible to find a place to break through in peace. Sensing the large group of people behind him, including Xian Hao, Yiguchen frowned slightly. He swallowed a large amount of healing pellets from the bronze pill cauldron, as well as some pellets to recover his qi. Only then was he able to hold on. However, this was not a long-term solution. Regardless of the others, Xian Hao alone was enough to pose a fatal threat to Yiguchen. Just as Yiguchen was thinking about his next move, the continuous mountain range and desolate forest in front of him suddenly disappeared. What replaced it was a sea that seemed to have no end. The sea was not an ordinary color, but pure gold. A golden sea. Could that be? Yiguchen's eyes flashed with light. Chapter 317. Before entering the Void Sword Realm, Chu Qingqi had told Yiguchen about the 3 places of opportunity in the Void Sword Realm. The Sword Pavilion and the Pill Hall were needless to say, as Yiguchen had already experienced them. The 3rd place of opportunity was the Creation Golden Pool. Until now, looking at the Golden Sea before him, Yiguchen realized that it was the Creation Golden Pool. The Creation Golden Pool was a famous place of opportunity in the Void Sword Realm. It was rumored that the golden liquid had a strong effect of tempering the body. Of course, the golden liquid also had a strange characteristic. It was very thick and heavy, like mercury. Anyone who entered the Creation Golden Pool would have to bear such a great pressure. The so-called tempering of the body was to gradually seep the golden liquid into the body under such pressure, gradually changing the skin, tendons, bones, organs, and so on. Although the Creation Golden Pool was called a pool, it was like a vast ocean. The deeper one went, the stronger the tempering power. However, most people's bodies couldn't bear the pressure and could only cultivate in the periphery. At that moment, Yiguchen looked over and saw that there were many figures in the Golden Ocean. Most of them were cultivating on the spot, allowing the Golden Ocean to wash over them. Other than that, there was a small number of geniuses who swam deeper into the Golden Ocean. I can use this opportunity to get rid of the trouble. Yiguchen's eyes flashed. He flapped his wings and flew in the direction of the Fortune Golden Pool. His arrival naturally attracted the attention of some people who were already in the Creation Golden Pool. That's Yiguchen from the Sword Sect. He's actually not dead yet. Wasn't it rumored that he was being chased by Xianhao? Xianhao is behind him. He actually caught up. But why does he look so angry? Yiguchen, Xianhao, and a large group of people who were chasing after him had all arrived at the Creation Golden Pool. This caused the warriors who were originally in the Creation Golden Pool to be shocked and puzzled. Yiguchen. There were also some old faces in the Fortune Gold Pool. Demon Blade Nia Ling, Blood Blade Mo Juechen, and Mad Blade Shintu Miao were all present. This was especially the case for Mo Juechen. When he saw Yiguchen's figure, a cold glint flashed across his eyes. He immediately charged towards Yiguchen. On the other side, the 9 profound sex green-clothed sword cultivator, Chen Yi, and Bai Yanji were cultivating here as well. Brother Yi, you really can stir up trouble wherever you go. Bai Yanji smiled bitterly. However, he was not too worried about Yiguchen because the pressure on his physical body was extremely great in the Fortune Gold Pond. It was difficult for him to fight here. Unless one was a true top-notch heaven's favorite, it would be difficult to even move. In addition, Ji Ling, Bai Zichen, Wang Xiaotian, and the others were all in the inner courtyard of the Sword Sect's forest of pagodas. When they saw Yiguchen, they all had different thoughts. Ji Ling's eyes were filled with joy. Although she knew that Yiguchen was not dead from Yi Xia and the others, she still heaved a sigh of relief when she saw him. As for Bai Zichen, his face instantly darkened. In his eyes, Yiguchen was like a thorn stuck in his throat. He was extremely unhappy. As for Wang Xiaotian and the others, they were all cursing Yiguchen for not dying. Yiguchen, you can't escape. Xianhao's cold and furious voice sounded from behind. Everyone present was able to sense the anger within those words. Why is Xianhao so angry? Many people were puzzled. In their opinion, Xianhao was aloof and looked down on everything. It was rare for him to lose his composure like this. However, Xianhao's reaction caused them to turn their gazes towards Yiguchen. Could it be that the Sword Sect's Yiguchen did something shocking again? I think it's possible. Just as everyone was bewildered, Yiguchen's figure flew directly to the sky above the Fortune Golden Pool. However, before long, Yiguchen suddenly felt the power of a formation that prevented him from staying in the air. He fell into the Golden Sea like a bird with broken wings. Behind him, Xianhao and a large group of people also entered the Fortune Golden Pool. As soon as Yiguchen fell into the Fortune Golden Pool, he felt that the surrounding Golden Sea water was as viscous as mercury. An overwhelming pressure pressed down on his body. However, at the same time, Yiguchin could clearly feel that the essence of the golden sea water was seeping into his body through the pressure. Yiguchin's perfect body had only laid down a perfect foundation. His body still had unlimited potential to continue strengthening. It was just like how a perfect foundation was needed to build a skyscraper. A perfect body was the most perfect foundation. This fortune golden pool is indeed worthy of being a place of opportunity. Yiguchin was overjoyed instead of being shocked. His body continued to fly towards the depths of the fortune golden pool. The deeper he went, the stronger the effect of the compressed tempering power became. Of course, the pressure also became greater. He looked back. Xianhao, Mo Juechen and the rest were following closely behind him. Other than them, there was also Nie Ling, Shintu Miao, Ji Ling, Bai Zichen, Wang Xiaotian and the rest. However, they seemed to want to go deeper to temper their bodies. I heard from Chu Qingqi that if I go deeper into the fortune golden pool, I might be able to obtain a special opportunity, Yiguchin thought to himself, but he did not slow down. The deeper one went into the fortune golden pool, the greater the pressure. Just the periphery of the fortune golden pool alone was enough to block most of the cultivators. Not long after, Yiguchin and the rest arrived at the central region. Here, the pressure of the golden seawater was obviously stronger. Even with Yiguchin's perfect body, cracking sounds could be heard. If he had not swallowed many supreme-grade elixirs to heal his injured body, it would have been difficult for him to hold on. However, Yiguchin also felt that his current body seemed to be stronger than before. It was not at the fortune golden pool, but at the land of lightning tide. After being baptized by the extreme void profound lightning, his body had started a new round of strengthening and transformation. If I go through the baptism of the fortune golden pool, my body will be even stronger. Yiguchin's eyes lit up. Although he was a sword cultivator, he knew that the body was the foundation of cultivation. It was the foundation. How strong is Yiguchin's body exactly? Xianhao's eyes darkened behind him. At this place, even he had to use his true qi to help resist the pressure of the golden seawater. Behind him, Mo Juechen and the rest slowed down even more, as if they were gradually approaching their limits. This junior brother is really, not simple. Ji Ling's rosy lips revealed a bitter smile. In the inner court, apart from Yan Wushuang, even Bai Zichen would not be able to make Ji Ling feel admiration if he had not left a mark on one sword cliff. But now, in Ji Ling's eyes, Yiguchin's position seemed to be rising higher and higher. Even Ji Ling could not imagine if Yiguchin would be able to shake Yan Wushuang's position as the first in the inner court if he recovered his cultivation. At this moment, Ji Ling's gaze was extremely complicated. On the other side, Bai Zichen, Wang Xiaotian, and the other geniuses of the inner court were also starting to feel exhausted. Yiguchin, thought Bai Zichen, his eyes filled with jealousy as he looked at Yiguchen's back. What virtue and ability does he have to have such talent? Another half an hour passed. Yiguchin was the first to break through the central region and truly entered the core of the fortune golden pool. As soon as he stepped over the line, Yiguchin immediately saw waves of golden waves in the distance sweeping over as if they wanted to destroy everything. Even further away, there was something like the sun floating in the air, emitting a dazzling golden light. That's... Yiguchin's eyes suddenly narrowed. Chapter 318. Although there was a long distance between them, Yiguchin could see the sun-like object floating in the air. The object was emitting a golden light. Yiguchin took a closer look and realized that the golden ball of light was actually a ball of liquid. That's right. It was a ball of extremely viscous liquid that seemed to be formed from melted gold. At this moment, a drop of golden liquid would drip down from the lump of golden liquid into the vast golden ocean every few breaths. Could it be? Yiguchen's mind suddenly came up with a conjecture that surprised him. The source of this fortune gold pond was that ball of viscous golden liquid. Perhaps this place was originally a small sea, but because of the golden liquid, drops of it fell into the sea and eventually turned into the golden pool of creation. Just the essence diluted by the seawater has such a strong body tempering effect. What kind of effect does the golden liquid have? At this moment, even Yi Guchen's eyes were burning with passion. He knew that the golden liquid was definitely a rare body-tempering treasure. Rumble. However, at this moment, the huge golden wave not far away also swept toward Yi Guchen. I must get it. Since he had seen such an opportunity, there was no reason to miss it. Yi Guchen continued to use his own means. Perfect physique, invincible Vajra body, and various other abilities. Then, he moved forward against the golden wave. Boom! The golden wave slammed into Yi Guchen like a stampede of 10,000 beasts. The force of the impact pushed Yi Guchen back dozens of feet. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his bones trembled. Such power! Yi Guchen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He took out a supreme-grade healing elixir from the bronze furnace and swallowed it. Although the impact of the golden waves was strong, with each impact, the essence contained in the seawater would seep into Yi Guchen's body at a faster rate. Therefore, this was also a kind of opportunity. And for some reason, this golden essence is compatible with my invincible Vajra body, Yi Guchen thought to himself. Muscle tendon changing scripture and marrow cleansing scripture were created by one of the top 10 experts in the pugilistic world, first ancestor Bodhidharma. When the two techniques were combined and cultivated to great success, one could cultivate the invincible Vajra body. But was the invincible Vajra body the end? Yi Guchen had thought about this before, but this was Bodhidharma's body tempering technique after all. Yi Guchen did not have a deep understanding of it. But now that he thought about it, could the invincible Vajra body that Bodhidharma cultivated be a path and not the end? Perhaps the invincible Vajra body is only a foundation, a beginning. This path of body tempering can still be continued. At this moment, Yi Guchen was enlightened. He suddenly understood this point and his thoughts became clear. Especially the golden essence in the seawater before him. It seemed to have caused the invincible Vajra body, which had already reached its peak, to show signs of metamorphosis. If I want to know the answer, I have to get that golden liquid. Yi Guchen's eyes were clear. Boom! 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 Waves of golden waves slammed towards Yi Guchen. Ordinary divine soul realm experts would not be able to withstand the impact and would be blasted away. But Yi Guchen's invincible Vajra body seemed to be compatible with the essence of the golden seawater. Even though the waves caused Yi Guchen to vomit blood every time, he did not show any signs of retreating. And behind Yi Guchen, Xian Hao also stepped into the core of the fortune gold pond. Yi Guchen, you can't escape. Xian Hao's true qi burst forth and his soul power was released to resist the golden waves. But he did not have a body tempering technique like the invincible Vajra body, so it was difficult for him to resist. As for Mo Juechen and the rest, Ji Ling, Bai Zichen, Wang Xiaotian and the rest, they were already exhausted and could not enter the core of the fortune gold pond. Damn it! Mo Juechen roared as he split the waves with his blade. But there was nothing he could do. Yi Guchen. Ji Ling looked at Yi Guchen, who had entered the core, with a bitter smile on the corner of her lips. Aside from Yan Wushuang, Bai Zichen and the rest, she was at the top of the inner courtyard. But here, she could only be considered not bad. Yi Guchen had far surpassed her. As for Bai Zichen, Wang Xiaotian and the rest, although they were unwilling, there was nothing they could do. Boom! 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 The core of the fortune gold pond. The closer one was to the golden liquid, the higher the frequency of the golden waves. Originally, it was a wave every 15 minutes, but now, it was a wave every 10 breaths. Even Yi Guchen found it difficult to withstand the continuous impact. His bones cracked as blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. If it was not for the elixir in the cauldron and the invincible Vajra body, Yi Guchen would not have been able to persist until here. As for Xian Hao, who was behind him, it was even more difficult for him to endure. Physical body was not Xian Hao's area of expertise. Of course, it did not mean that Xian Hao's physical body was weak. His physical body was definitely stronger than ordinary sky prides, but it could not be compared to Yiguchen, who had a perfect physical body and the invincible Vajra body. Almost there. I'm almost at my limit. Yiguchen, although your true chi is crippled, your physical body has indeed shocked me. Xian Hao's eyes were slightly gloomy. Boom. Finally, another golden wave came crashing. Xian Hao's body was blasted back dozens of feet as he spat out blood. On the other hand, Yiguchen was already close to the golden liquid. 100 feet, 500 feet, 300 feet, 10 feet, boom, boom, boom. At this point, the golden wave seemed to be boiling as it crazily battered Yiguchen, as if it wanted to push him back. But no matter how much blood Yiguchen coughed up, no matter how much his physical body shook, he still did not take a single step back. Open for me. Facing the oncoming wave, Yiguchen's body was overflowing with golden light. He did not use any superfluous techniques. He only activated the invincible Vajra body and used both hands to break through the wave. The vermilion bird wings on his back suddenly spread open. Although there was a restrictive power here, Yiguchen did not want to fly. He only wanted a moment of impact. His body rose into the air as he grabbed at the golden liquid with one hand. With a plop, Yiguchen's hand directly broke into the golden liquid. At this moment, Yiguchen's physical body trembled violently. The invincible Vajra body involuntarily exploded with even more brilliant light, dyeing Yiguchen's body as if it was cast in gold. That golden liquid also seemed to be alive. It followed Yiguchen's hand and spread, finally wrapping around his body. In an instant, Yiguchen's mind suddenly understood. It was as if the clouds had parted to reveal the clear sky. I understand now. So that's how it is. Yiguchen sighed, unable to hide his joy. He knew what this golden liquid was, and also knew that the invincible Vajra body was not the true limit. Chapter 319. This sunlight golden liquid was called the Golden Body Potion. It was an extremely precious liquid used to refine the body. This kind of precious liquid was very rare and precious. Generally, only the great forces of the South Horizon region had this kind of precious liquid. Generally, it was used to refine the body of their disciples. In the 7 great forces of the Saint Origin dynasty, there was no such precious liquid. However, in ancient times, the Void Sword sect was incomparably prosperous. It was not rare to have such a precious liquid. But the most important thing was that Yiguchen's invincible Vajra body seemed to have opened a new door after coming into contact with the Golden Body Potion. The invincible Vajra body that seemed to have been cultivated to the extreme seemed to have begun to transform again. And in this change, Yiguchen also had a kind of enlightenment. The invincible Vajra body was only the first stage of this body refining technique. It seemed to have opened up a path. As for why Bodhidharma did not continue to open up the path, perhaps it was because the world of his previous life was too small and far less vast than this world. But even so, to be able to open up a path was enough to prove Bodhidharma's ability. The surface of the body is golden. It has the ability to be indestructible and can resist spiritual inscriptions. Then what's the next stage? Yiguchen's eyes were filled with curiosity. He directly sat cross-legged in the center of the core area of the Fortune Golden Pool. Around him, the golden seawater swirled violently as if forming a whirlpool. And the center of the whirlpool was where Yiguchen sat cross-legged. As for the Golden Body Potion, it had completely seeped into Yiguchen's body. Of course, the amount of Golden Body Potion was not small. It was definitely not something that could be consumed and refined in a short time. Yiguchen's invincible Vajra body was being refined by the Golden Body Potion and slowly absorbed it. As for Xian Hao, when the golden whirlpool appeared, he had already been completely blasted out of this area. Yiguchen, you. Xian Hao took a deep breath, trying to calm his emotions. But the more he tried to calm down, the more the resentment in his heart could not be eliminated. This was inconceivable for Xian Hao, who had always been indifferent and arrogant. Moreover, this would also affect his Tao heart. Yi Guqin has gradually become a crack in my heart, an obsession. If I don't get rid of him, then it will only bring disaster to me in the future. Xian Hao took a deep look at the monstrous golden wave at the core. Yi Guqin's figure had already been buried. After such a long time, there are only 7 days left before the Void Sword Realm closes. I don't believe that you can still stay here and not show up. Xian Hao made up his mind and did not leave. Instead, he chose to stand guard outside the Fortune Golden Pool and wait for Yi Guqin to appear. Time trickled by. Yi Guqin's invincible Vajra body was gradually transforming under the tempering of the golden body elixir. As for Xian Hao, he was also very patient as he stood guard outside the Fortune Gold Pond. Now, Xian Hao truly regarded Yi Guqin as an opponent on the same level, and he no longer underestimated him. And as time went by, it was getting closer and closer to the time when the Void Sword Realm would close. The disciples of the 7 major forces in the Sword Realm also began to frantically search for opportunities. After all, such an opportunity was very rare, and no one was willing to return empty-handed. And amidst this madness, there was an astonishing piece of news that was like a bolt from the blue, and then like a gust of wind, it swept across the entire Void Sword Realm. Someone had obtained the fortune left behind by an expert with a Yuan spirit. This news, like a heavy bomb, made all the elite disciples of the 7 major forces in the Void Sword Realm feel their minds rumble. Yuan spirit was a word that was very far away from them. But this did not prevent them from knowing the meaning of a Yuan spirit. Even in the South Sky region, it could be called a true top expert. In the eyes of an expert with a Yuan spirit, even an expert of the Divine Dwelling stage or the Heavenly Palace stage was just like an ant. Of course, they understood it this way because they did not know that Ying Ning's Yuan spirit came from her remarkable ability, the Immortal Soul Pearl. Have you heard? I heard that Yi Guqin, Zither Fairy, and Mu Xingzu seem to have obtained the fortune left behind by a Yuan spirit expert. Well, it shouldn't be Yi Guqin. Everyone saw him in the Fortune Golden Pool, and some people also saw traces of Zither Fairy. Then only Mu Xingzu is left. Heh! Mu Xingzu, you're only in the Qi refining realm. How did you become an inner yard disciple? I heard that she is the disciple of Yi Guqin of the Sword Sect. What bullshit disciple, how could such an expert's fortune be taken by a little girl of the Qi refining stage? As the news spread out, the entire Void Sword Realm seemed to be boiling. Almost everyone was frantically searching for Mu Xingzu's traces. However, someone leaked the news and exposed the location of the stone bridge. In an instant, almost all the disciples of the 7 major forces who entered the Void Sword Realm were like hyenas that smelled meat and rushed towards the stone bridge. However, when they saw the light screen outside the stone bridge, they were even more certain of the authenticity of the news. The news is true, there really is a fortune that belongs to a Yuan spirit expert here. Yi Guqin and Zither Fairy are elsewhere. The person who inherited the fortune here must be Mu Xingzu. I'm not convinced. She is only in the Qi refining stage, how can she be qualified to take the fortune left behind by a Yuan spirit expert? More and more people gathered around the stone bridge, and in the end, there were almost 3 layers of people surrounding the place. The fortune left behind by a Yuan spirit expert could be said to be the greatest fortune since the opening of the Void Sword Realm. It was no wonder that the disciples of the 7 major forces were so excited. In the end, the news spread to almost everyone in the Void Sword Realm. Even Xian Hao, who had been guarding outside the Fortune Golden Pool, received the news. The fortune left behind by a Yuan spirit expert, even with Xian Hao's temperament, he could not help but be amazed. The king-level sword technique, the bronze elixir furnace, and the extreme void mysterious thunder were all great fortunes. However, compared to the fortune left behind by a Yuan spirit expert, they were slightly inferior. The realm of a Yuan spirit expert is far beyond our imagination. Even if there is only a little bit of fortune left behind, it can be called a great fortune. Xian Hao could not sit still. After thinking for a while, he got up and left the Fortune Golden Pool. Yi Guqin, as long as he is still around, the fortune will not run away. I cannot miss the fortune left behind by a Yuan spirit expert. Xian Hao's figure flashed and rushed to the stone bridge. Even Xian Hao could not resist the fortune, which showed how crazy it was. The entire Void Sword realm seemed to be boiling because of it. Everyone's suspicions were all pointing towards one person, Mu Xingzhu. As for the entire Void Sword realm, the only person who had not received the news was Yiguchen, who was sitting cross-legged at the core of the fortune golden pool and being refined by the golden body liquid. After a long silence, Yiguchen finally opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, a huge golden wave surged and swept in all directions. Chapter 320. Yiguchen, who was sitting cross-legged in the golden whirlpool of waves, opened his eyes. In an instant, huge waves surged into the sky and roared like an angry dragon. His eyes, which were as dark as night, flashed with a greenish-gold light. At the same time, Yiguchen's body shone with light. The light was not the pure golden color of the invincible Vajra body. Instead, there was a hint of greenish gold in the golden color. I finally understand. The path after the invincible Vajra body is the flawless body. Yiguchen's eyes lit up. Previously, when Yiguchen used the invincible Vajra body, the light that appeared was golden. This was the golden body, also known as the invincible body. It could fight against spiritual inscription weapons. After that, after the refinement of the golden body potion and his own understanding, Yiguchen gradually understood the path ahead. After the golden body was the azurite body. The azurite body was also known as the flawless body. Now, even with the refinement of the golden body potion, Yiguchen could not transform into the flawless body in a short time. It required a process. The flawless body had no flaws or flaws. It was like a perfect whole body. If he attained a flawless body, Yiguchen would be able to fight against a dermic pattern divine weapon with just his physical body alone. Besides, the flawless body's characteristics made Yiguchen's body like a whole body. It was difficult to find any flaws. Even some of the sharp mystical rune divine weapons that could break through his defense were unable to penetrate his physical body. This was the flawless Vajra body. However, the cultivation of the flawless body is more difficult than the invincible body. It can't be achieved overnight. Even this ball of golden body potion is only an opportunity for me to achieve the flawless body. There is still a long way to go before I can master it. Yiguchen was enlightened. His invincible body had already started to transform into the flawless body. Yiguchen felt that his body was tougher and stronger than before. Now, even though he had not broken through to the unblemished body, he could resist the attack of any divine weapon with spiritual inscriptions with his physical body alone. At the same time, the golden body liquid in Yiguchen's body had also decreased by half. However, Yiguchen's veins, bones, muscles, and even his internal organs seemed to be covered in a layer of green light. Yiguchen's current physical condition was several times stronger than before. The foundation of the physical body is like forging a sword. It also needs to be tempered, and the golden body elixir is a supplementary item, Yiguchen thought. But no matter what, Yiguchen's physical body had become much stronger. It was incomparable to before. Is Xian Hao guarding outside or has he already left? However, it doesn't matter. I will make a complete breakthrough here. Yiguchen's eyes lit up with a fiery glow. Yiguchen had been waiting for too long since the shocking battle in the infinite wasteland plains. Although he did not care about the disdain and cold eyes of others, the oppressive feeling made Yiguchen somewhat unhappy. He did not want to rely on anyone's strength, even the blood cloud centipede. When I make a breakthrough, no one can stop me. Just as Yiguchen was about to take out the two heavenly thunder and prepare to make a breakthrough, a message from Zither Fairy suddenly came from his communication jade slip. Young Master Yi, the situation is not good. The stone bridge where Mu Xingzhu is at has been surrounded by all the disciples of the forces who have entered the Void Sword realm. What? Yiguchen's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. For a moment, the surrounding waves surged. Almost immediately after, Ji Ling, Chu Qingqi, and the others also sent news. The news of the stone bridge had been completely leaked. At present, Mu Xingzu was in a very dangerous situation. After all, in the face of such a great opportunity, almost no one could restrain the greed in their hearts. As for Mu Xingzhu, she was like a little lamb surrounded by a pack of wolves. She was in a precarious situation. If I'm not wrong, it should be Pan Shuoyan and the other three. At the thought of this, Yi Guqin's face seemed to be frozen. The surrounding temperature between heaven and earth seemed to have dropped a lot. It's less than 7 days before the Void Sword realm closes. If I make a breakthrough at this time, even if I succeed, I'm afraid it's almost time. And by then, Mu Xingzu would have been killed by everyone. Although Senior Yingning gave the inheritance to Mu Xingzu, without the immortal soul pearl, her strength will be greatly reduced and she will enter a period of weakness. It will be difficult for her to use powerful means, and if I don't make a breakthrough and go straight to... Yi Guqin's eyes revealed a thoughtful look. Any rational person would make the right choice in such a situation. Make a breakthrough first and then go. With Yi Guqin's long accumulated foundation, his breakthrough this time was no small matter. As long as he made a breakthrough, even God's favored sons like Xian Hao could not do anything to him. But if I choose to make a breakthrough, Mu Xingzu's safety is uncertain. Yi Guqin's eyes flashed. He never thought of himself as a person with a temperament. On the contrary, Yi Guqin's character was very indifferent. Besides the sword, there were too few people and things that could move him. Even Mu Xingzu, at first, was just a casual promise from Yi Guqin to teach her swordsmanship. He did not really intend to take Mu Xingzu as his disciple. But, I, Yi Guqin, am not a saint, but if you want me to make a breakthrough here in peace and put Mu Xingzu in danger, I can't do it either. Boom! There was a deafening roar, and the surrounding golden waves spread out. Yi Guqin stood up directly, and his eyes were like swords that wanted to split the sky. At this moment, he did not care about his own cultivation, nor did he care about the final result. He only wanted to be calm and use the sword in his hand to get rid of all injustice. You'd better pray that Mu Xingzu is fine, or else... Yi Guqin paused, and it was as if thousands of miles of ice had frozen the ocean. Don't blame the sword demon for being merciless. At the stone bridge. It was located at the most remote place in the Void Sword realm, and the void turbulence surged in the sky. Originally, there were few people here, but now, endless noise surged in all directions. The densely packed heads were like a swarm of ants, gathered here and surrounded the stone bridge. On the other side of the stone bridge, in the barren mountains, a vigorous wave was emitted continuously. While the wave was shocking, it also made everyone's eyes turn scarlet like a wild beast's. No one could resist the great creation of an immortal soul expert. That wave is indeed extraordinary. On the Limitless Sword sect's side, a large group of people, led by Xian Hao, occupied a territory. Behind Xian Hao, Murong Ditian, Xian Mo, Xian Ying, and the rest were all present. After feeling the wave in the barren mountains, even Xian Hao's eyes flashed with a blazing light. The 3 royal palace's disciples, led by Little Flame Emperor Ji Yan, were also present. Ji Yan's mouth carried a faint playful smile, and he exchanged glances with the other 3 not far away. On the Saint Origin Academy's side, the young Marquis Fangchen and Prince Yuanyi were present. The Consonance Divine Palace's Pan Shuoyan and Zither Fairy were also present, but the 2 of them were very far away from each other. In addition, the Sealed Saber Royal Palace's Nia Ling, Mo Juechen, Shintu Miao, and even the 7th and 10th on the Heavenly Saber list, Zhou Yan and Yan Kun, were all present. The 9 Profound Sects group, led by Chen Yi and Bai Yanji, were also present. As for the Sword Sect's Forest of Pagodas, it was vaguely divided into 2 groups. One group was led by Bai Zichen, Wang Xiaotian, Li Lingxiao, and the other top 10 disciples of the Inner Yard. The other group was led by Ji Ling, Yi Guqin, Chu Qingqi, and the rest. This group of disciples had all received favors from Yi Guqin, and were on his side. At the stone bridge, all the factions and elites were gathered here. Among them, most of them only had one goal, and that was to snatch Mu Xingzu's creation as an immortal soul expert. Chapter 321. Rumble. Waves of powerful vibrations came from the barren mountain. Not only were the vibrations shocking, but they also made people jealous. Among the many figures who were surrounded, the ones who were the most jealous were Pan Shuoyan, Ji Yan, Fang Chen, and Prince Yuanyi. After all, they were the first to know about this place, just like Zither Fairy and the others. In Pan Shuoyan and the others' hearts, this great opportunity should belong to them. But now, this opportunity was snatched away by Mu Xingzu, a mere Qi refinement realm martial artist. How could Pan Shuoyan and the others not feel aggrieved and angry? It was also because of this that Pan Shuoyan and the others were like this. They would not let Mu Xingzu receive the opportunity in peace even if they had to reveal this place. If I, Pan Shuoyan, can't get the opportunity, no one can. Mu Xingzu, if you come out, you will be torn apart by this group of jealous people. Pan Shuoyan's lips curled into a smug smile, but her eyes were filled with resentment. On the other side, Ji Yan, Fang Chen, Prince Yuanyi, and the others were considering whether it was possible to snatch the opportunity from Mu Xingzu. After all, they did not want to give up such an opportunity. Do you think Ye Guqin will come to save this girl? Prince Yuanyi pondered. Unless he is a fool, he should know that with the opportunities he obtained in the Sword Pavilion and Pill Hall, even if he comes here, he will only end up like Mu Xingzu. Fang Chen said coldly. That's right. Ye Guqin should not be that foolish. He should run as far as he can now and think of a way to escape when the Void Sword realm closes. Prince Yuanyi shook his head with a smile. He obviously thought that he was overthinking. Although he really wanted Ye Guqin to walk right into his trap, it was obviously impossible for him to do so. On the other side of the inner yard, Ji Ling and the others had a trace of anxiety in their eyes. No matter what, Mu Xingzu was still an inner court disciple. Ji Ling naturally couldn't allow herself to remain uninvolved. I've already told Brother Yi about this place, but to be honest, I advised him not to come here. Chu Qingqi sighed softly. Sigh, I know. Ye Guqin's fortuitous encounter is similarly coveted by others. It's normal for him not to come. If he comes, not only will he not be able to save Mu Xingzu, he will also be sacrificing himself. Ji Ling shook her head. She did not blame Ye Guqin. She even hoped that Ye Guqin would not come. It would be great if Shuang was here. If she was here, she would definitely be able to control the situation. Even Xian Hao wouldn't go too far. Ji Ling sighed in her heart as she thought of the valiant figure in the ice silk skirt armor. If they were in the inner courtyard, Ji Ling, Bai Zichen, Wang Xiaotian, and the others would still have some weight. However, if they were in the 7 great factions, the only one who could truly intimidate others and make others feel apprehensive was Yan Wushuang. This was also the reason why Yan Wushuang was so cold and aloof. In the inner yard, no one of the same generation could stand shoulder to shoulder with her. As for Bai Zichen, he did not have the slightest bit of camaraderie towards Mu Xingzu. In fact, he was also somewhat envious of Mu Xingzu's fortuitous encounter. Why are those great fortuitous encounters either obtained by Ye Guqin or the people around him? How can I be willing to accept this? Bai Zichen's expression was solemn. If there was a chance, he would definitely take action. As for the other factions, they all had different thoughts. But as expected, they were all waiting for the final moment to compete for the fortuitous encounter. At this moment, in the cave dwelling in the barren mountain, the inheritance was about to come to an end. Mu Xingzu sat cross-legged on a futon in an aqua-green dress. Behind her, Ying Ning's figure was already somewhat illusory. However, with her eyes closed, Mu Xingzu's aura had already reached the Divine Soul realm. Not only had she just stepped into the Divine Soul realm, but her fluctuation had already reached the 4th transformation of the Divine Soul realm. To Mu Xingzu, this was a great fortuitous encounter that could change her fate. Not only that, In addition to the advancement of her cultivation realm, Mu Xingzu also obtained the soul sword essence inheritance. As the soul fluctuation in her mind spread, the sharp sword essence also seemed to spread in all directions along with the fluctuation. The most important immortal soul pearl was about to completely take root in Mu Xingzu's sea of consciousness. Boom! At a certain moment, the immortal soul pearl completely integrated into Mu Xingzu's sea of consciousness. Mu Xingzu opened her watery eyes. At the same time, a vast soul fluctuation almost uncontrollably erupted from her sea of consciousness, shaking the entire barren mountain. You succeeded. Ying Ning's voice was somewhat weak. Just as Mu Xingzu's pretty face lit up with joy, she saw Ying Ning's delicate body gradually turn transparent. Senior Ying Ning, what's wrong? Mu Xingzu panicked, her beautiful face turning pale. It's nothing. I just used up too much energy. My primordial spirit will soon enter the heavenly sea soul marrow to sleep. It may take some time before I can wake up. Now, many people have gathered at the periphery of this place. Ying Ning's expression was slightly solemn. What? Mu Xingzu gritted her teeth. Although it was somewhat unexpected, her face did not reveal the slightest bit of fear. The barrier at the periphery of the barren mountain can still hold on for a while. You should consolidate your cultivation. Perhaps you'll have a chance to escape. I want to help you, but... Ying Ning's voice grew weaker and her figure became fainter. Senior Ying Ning, quickly enter it. Mu Xingzu held the heavenly sea soul marrow pendant in her hand. Ying Ning shook her head helplessly and her primordial spirit entered it. After hanging the pendant properly, Mu Xingzu clenched her fists and walked out of the cave. At this moment, the crowd waiting anxiously at the periphery suddenly realized that the fluctuations in the barren mountain had calmed down. What's going on? Has the inheritance ended? Just as the crowd was puzzled, Mu Xingzu's elegant and delicate figure walked out of the cave in the barren mountain. It's Mu Xingzu. She's come out. Look at her aura. She's in the divine soul realm, and not just any ordinary divine soul realm. She's at least in the fourth transformation of the divine soul realm. She must have obtained great fortune. Otherwise, it's impossible for her to directly leap from the Qi refinement realm to the fourth transformation of the divine soul realm. The moment Mu Xingzu appeared, almost everyone's eyes turned red instantly, as if a hungry wolf had encountered its prey. Even Xian Hao's breathing quickened slightly because he felt the power in Mu Xingzu's body. Mu Xingzu has inherited sword intent. Xian Hao sighed. What? Sword intent? Xian Hao's words caused an uproar. The already red eyes turned even redder, as if they wanted to tear Mu Xingzu's body apart. Mu Xingzu, what did you obtain? Pan Shuoyan swayed her hips as she walked out, her face filled with resentment. Mu Xingzu looked at the densely packed crowd. Even though she had a strong heart, she was still a young girl. Her face was slightly pale, but she still gritted her teeth and didn't retreat. Mu Xingzu, hand over the fortune you obtained and we might spare your life. The little flame emperor of the 3 imperial palaces, Ji Yan, walked out with a face filled with jealousy and hatred. Mu Xingzu, I hope you know what's good for you. Actually, I don't want to be ruthless. Prince Yuanyi and Fang Chen walked out. You're not worthy of this fortune. A group of people from the saber-sealing monarch palace stepped out. What are you doing? Mu Xingzu is a member of the inner court. Who dares to attack her? Ji Ling's delicate figure flashed as she took a step forward. Behind her, Chu Qingqi, Yi Xia, and the other inner court disciples also stepped out. You may think so, but the others in the inner court might not think so. Prince Yuanyi's tone was playful as he looked at Bai Zichen and the others. Fortune is destined by the heavens. It belongs to whoever can snatch it, Bai Zichen said indifferently. Bai Zichen, you. Ji Ling clenched her teeth. If the inner court wasn't united, how could they suppress the other factions? Back off. If Yan Wushuang was here, her words might carry some weight. However, you'd better be tactful. Xian Hao took a step forward as the aura of the 9 transformations of the divine soul gushed out, forcing Ji Ling and the others to retreat. Mu Xingzu clenched her fists when she felt the greedy gazes of the people outside. This fortune was passed down to me by a senior at a great price. I, Mu Xingzu, won't give it to anyone. Is that so? Xian Hao pointed his finger and sword qi exploded in the air. Boom! The sword qi was directly blocked by the light barrier outside the pavilion on the barren mountain. Everyone, let's attack together. Pan Shulian screamed. Hearing this, everyone attacked in unison, bombarding the protective light screen. Rumble. After Ying Ning fell into a deep slumber, the light barrier could only hold on for a short while. Hundreds of people launched their attacks at the same time. Hundreds and thousands of real qi rays bombarded the light curtain like a torrent. The light curtain became increasingly illusory, and started to tremble. It seemed as if it would collapse at any moment. What should I do? Mu Xingzu took out the Aurora sword. However, even if she had reached the 4th transformation of the Divine Soul Realm, possessed the Soul Sword Intent, and the Immortal Soul Pearl, she was facing hundreds of elite disciples, including Xian Hao. This was a death trap that she could not escape from. Senior Brother Yi, please don't come. Mu Xingzu bit her lips so hard that they almost bled. She would rather fight alone than let Yi Guqin appear here. Hehe, do you still hope that Yi Guqin will come and save you? Let's not talk about whether he has the guts to come. Even if he comes, what can he change? He will only be sending himself to his death. Pan Shulian chuckled when she saw Mu Xingzhu's determined face. She laughed very happily. She did not want others to get what she could not get. Therefore, Pan Shulian wanted to see Mu Xingzhu die in the hands of others with her own eyes. This made her happy. The light barrier is about to break. Little Flame Emperor Ji Yan's eyes lit up. Boom! 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 Everyone attacked crazily as if they did not care about their lives. The fortune of a primordial soul realm expert was too tempting. As for Ji Ling and the others, although they wanted to stop them, it was futile in front of the situation. Boom! There was another explosion. The entire barren mountain, stone bridge, and pavilion shook violently. Then, bang! The protective light barrier was finally unable to bear the pressure and shattered into light spots. Mu Xingzu was completely exposed in front of everyone. Go, the fortune of a primordial soul realm expert is right in front of you. Kill her and you can obtain the fortune of a primordial soul realm expert. Get out of the way, this fortune is mine. The moment the light barrier shattered, everyone seemed to have gone crazy. Their eyes were red and they were about to attack. However, at this moment, whoosh! A figure tore through the sky from afar and broke through the air. Accompanied by a cold roar that seemed to shake the gods, it resounded in everyone's ears. Whoever attacks will die under my sword. Chapter 322. Whoever dares to attack will die under my sword. As soon as he said that, the heavens and earth trembled and reverberated in all directions. Everyone who was about to make a move subconsciously stopped in their tracks. The reason for that was because they heard the bone-piercing killing intent contained in those words. That murderous intent sent chills down their spines, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Swoosh! In the instant that the crowd stopped, that figure fell from the sky like a meteor. With a loud bang, he landed in front of Mu Xingzu. At that moment, the heavens and earth were dead silent, the hundreds of elite disciples from the 7 major forces were all silent. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the figure in the smoke. Who was it? Who dared to use those words to threaten the hundreds of elites present? Who dared to say that whoever dares to attack will die under my sword? Are you really that stupid? Xian Hao's eyes were deep as he looked at the smoke. As the smoke dissipated, a figure in a black robe appeared in front of everyone. His long black hair covered his eyes, but everyone seemed to be able to feel his gaze. It was like an Azura from hell. Yi Guqin. It's Yi Guqin from the Sword Sect. At that moment, everyone's faces were filled with shock. They were not shocked by Yi Guqin's appearance, but by Yi Guqin's courage to appear here. Yi Guqin, you really? Sigh. Ji Ling, Chu Qingqi, and the others' faces froze when they saw that, but they immediately let out a deep sigh. Yi Guqin, heh. You're really here to die. Pan Shuoyan's face was filled with joy when she saw that, but it was also filled with coldness. Seeing that it was Yi Guqin who had arrived, the shock on the faces of the disciples from the various major forces gradually turned into greed. It was as if they had seen a new prey. Yi Guqin also had many opportunities. If it was Yi Guqin in his peak condition, they might be a little afraid. However, Yi Guqin's genuine qi was completely crippled. Even though he was tested to have a shocking talent in the pill hall, it only represented his talent and not his actual strength. It was also because of this that Yi Guqin's arrival did not shock the crowd. Instead, it aroused the greed in their hearts to seize the opportunity. Senior brother Yi, looking at the slightly thin figure standing in front of her, Mu Xingzu's vision suddenly blurred. Her sparkling eyes were filled with tears. When she was besieged by everyone and everyone wanted to kill her to seize her good fortune. Only Yi Guqin rushed over at the critical moment and stood in front of her, to shelter her from all the wind and rain. At this moment, the image of Yi Guqin's back was deeply engraved in Mu Xingzu's heart. It was unforgettable. In this life, there was only one man in Mu Xingzu's heart, the Sword Sect, Yi Guqin. Senior brother Yi, you. Mu Xingzu choked. She did not know what to say. Xingzhu, retreat behind me. Yi Guqin did not turn his head. His tone was still as calm as usual. It was as if the crisis in front of Yi Guqin was like floating clouds. It was nothing. Senior brother Yi, with you here, Xingzhu is not afraid. If you live, I live. If you die, I die. Mu Xingzu walked forward with firm steps. At this moment, she did not stand behind Yi Guqin. Instead, she stood side by side with Yi Guqin. In the past, Mu Xingzu felt inferior. She had always looked at Yi Guqin's back with a respectful attitude. However, now that her strength had increased, Mu Xingzu did not want to hide behind Yi Guqin anymore. She wanted to stand side by side with Yi Guqin and withstand all the storms. Yi Guqin was slightly taken aback. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. You're still in the mood to flirt when you're about to die. Do you want me to prepare a good coffin for the two of you? Pan Shuoyan sneered when she saw this. Yi Guqin's gaze was like a sword as he turned to Pan Shuoyan. Today, you must die. Yi Guqin did not say much. He sentenced Pan Shuoyan to death with 5 simple words. This was because he knew that Pan Shuoyan was narrow-minded and vicious. The current situation was most likely caused by Pan Shuoyan. You. Do you still think you're the Sword Sect? How dare a useless person like you threaten me? Pan Shuoyan was so angry that she laughed. She was so angry that her face turned pale. Yi Guqin, your courage is admirable. However, your stupidity is also laughable. Prince Yuanyi shook his head slightly. Yi Guqin, today, whether it's you or Mu Xingzu, both of you must die, Ji Yan said coldly. The hundreds of prodigies and elites present all stared at Yi Guqin. Each of them had their own plans. The 9 profound sects Chen Yi and the others, as well as the Consonance Palace's Zither Fairy, were all on Yi Guqin's side. There were also Ji Ling and the other inner court disciples. However, Yi Guqin had even more enemies. The atmosphere at the scene seemed to have frozen over. Only a trace of unbearable hot breathing could be heard. Finally, Xian Hao slowly took a step forward. His gaze swept across the inner courts Ji Ling and the others, as well as the 9 profound sects Chen Yi and the Consonance Palace's Zither Fairy. Ji Ling and the others, as well as Chen Yi and the Zither Fairy, I know that all of you are related to Yi Guqin. However, I, Xian Hao, hereby declare that if any of you dare to help Yi Guqin and Mu Xingzu escape, Xian Hao, will not chase after them. However, I will kill all of you. As soon as Xian Hao finished speaking, his aura was unparalleled and domineering. Ji Ling, Chen Yi, the Zither Fairy, and the others' expressions changed. Xian Hao was indeed qualified to say such words. The Zither Fairy gritted her teeth. Just as she was about to refute, Yi Guqin suddenly smiled. He said, Ji Ling, Brother Chu, Brother Chen Yi, Bai Yanji, Zither Fairy, all of you, retreat to the side. Yi Guqin, Ji Ling, the Zither Fairy, and the others wanted to say something but hesitated. This matter has nothing to do with you, Yi Guqin said indifferently. Ji Ling and the others clenched their fists tightly and retreated to the side in the end. The Zither Fairy and the others also retreated to the side helplessly. However, they still kept a close eye on the situation. What exactly is Yi Guqin planning? Yi Guqin's actions puzzled Prince Yuanyi and the others. They didn't understand why Yi Guqin still had the courage to say such words under such circumstances. This way, it's much simpler. Yi Guqin, will you choose to surrender or struggle in vain? Xian Hao's tone was confident that victory was within his grasp. Yi Guqin didn't answer. He swept his gaze over the crowd and said, if those who are still here choose to leave, I, Yi Guqin, will not pursue the matter. If you don't leave, I'll say the same thing, if anyone dares to attack, they will die under my sword. Yi Guqin's tone was calm and his gaze was indifferent. What is he saying? Has water entered his brain, or has he already given up? Everyone was puzzled and found it funny at the same time. Not to mention that Yi Guqin's true qi was crippled. Even if he wasn't, he still didn't have the right to say such words under such circumstances. It seems that you've already gone mad. Xian Hao sighed and shook his head. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, no one left the place. Yi Guqin shook his head slightly and turned to Mu Xingzu. Xingzhu, I'll take you out of here. Mu Xingzu nodded in response. Xian Hao's eyes turned completely cold when he heard that. Yi Guqin, you can't even protect yourself. What right do you have to say such words? Yi Guqin didn't respond. He raised one hand and the bronze cauldron fell into his palm. When the bronze cauldron appeared, everyone's eyes were filled with extreme heat as they stared at Yi Guqin's palm. Yi Guqin, you're still afraid of death. You want to give up the cauldron to save your life, but it's too late. Pan Shuoyan sneered when she saw that. Yi Guqin chuckled. A blood-red pill shot out of the bronze cauldron. Yi Guqin put away the cauldron and held the blood pill. This pill exuded the powerful fluctuations of a sage-to-be pill. That pill is. The eyes of Xian Hao and the others suddenly focused, and their eyes shook. Didn't you guys always say that my true qi is crippled? Then I, Yi Guqin, will kindly show you what I look like when I have my true qi. Yi Guqin swallowed the blood pill as soon as he finished speaking. At that moment, the atmosphere froze. In the next moment, a terrifying blood-red true qi erupted from Yi Guqin's body. He was like an Asura that had awakened and returned from hell. He swore to kill all demons with one sword. Chapter 323. Boom! The terrifying blood-red true energy burst out from Yi Guqin's body. It looked like a blood-red dragon that soared into the sky. Even the dark and gloomy sky was tainted by the true energy, turning into a blood-red color. How? How is this possible? It's true energy. Why? Didn't they say that Yi Guqin's true energy is gone? How is it possible that he still has true energy? At that moment, everyone who surrounded the area was incomparably shocked. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Yi Guqin's true energy was gone. This was something that almost everyone in the Saint Origin dynasty knew. It was also because of this that the people present dared to force Yi Guqin and Mu Xingzu to do so. After all, Yi Guqin, who had no true energy, was not a threat to them. But now, as they felt the incomparably ferocious blood-colored true qi, even these elite disciples' faces turned deathly pale. This surge of true energy caused them to feel a trace of shock. This true energy fluctuation is comparable to a genius with a divine soul's seventh transformation. After feeling the pressure of Yi Guqin's true energy, even Fang Chen, Ji Yan, and the others were shocked. Their eyes were filled with horror and their faces froze. Yi Guqin, are you trying to kill yourself? How dare you take the mad demon blood blaze pill with your true energy gone? Xian Hao said in a cold voice. What? Mad demon blood blaze pill. No wonder he took the mad demon blood blaze pill. Everyone was shocked by Xian Hao's words. Yi Guqin's eyes were deep. What he took was indeed the mad demon blood blaze pill. As a quasi-sage pill, the mad demon blood blaze pill only had one effect. It was to ignite one's own blood and qi to release powerful true energy. Yi Guqin's true energy did not come from his qi si. It came from the burning of his blood and qi. It was precisely because he had burned his qi and blood that his true qi was blood red. Yi Guqin, you really have nothing left to lose. The mad demon blood blaze pellet is a sage-to-be pellet. Its efficacy is terrifying. Even the hidden latch of life and death and the spiritual bridge of heaven and earth would not dare to take it casually. You, a mere qi-refining realm cultivator, actually dared to take it. The corners of Xian Hao's mouth curled into a sneer. What, senior brother Yi? Mu Xingzu's face turned as white as a sheet. It's fine. I've already said that I'll take you and kill our way out. Yi Guqin's expression did not change in the slightest. In fact, Yi Guqin wouldn't have used this pill if he hadn't been forced into such a situation. But right now, Yi Guqin only had one solution. Therefore, he needed to take a gamble. True qi comparable to the seventh divine soul transformation gushed out of Yi Guqin's body. And perhaps because he had burned his qi and blood, this blood-red true qi was also extremely violent and domineering. Yi Guqin's origin ring flashed and the meteorite soft sword appeared in his hand. He looked around with disdain and his voice was as cold as ice. I'll turn into an Azura and kill all demons with one sword. Yi Guqin, one man and one sword, his qi and blood filled the sky as he blocked hundreds of elites. Everyone, let's attack together. Even if Yi Guqin has temporarily recovered his true qi, he won't be able to hold on for long. Pan Shuoyan once again stirred up everyone's emotions and screamed. Pan Shuoyan, I've said that you'll die today. Yi Guqin's eyes were as sharp as swords as they pierced towards Pan Shuoyan. He used wave-like subtle steps and his figure almost instantly swept over to Lingxi Palace's side. All of you, go. Pan Shuoyan's face changed drastically. Yi Guqin's true qi cultivation had reached the seventh transformation of divine soul. Just that aura alone made Pan Shuoyan's heart skip a beat. Pan Shuoyan was surrounded by more than 10 female disciples of Lingxi Palace, all of whom were beautiful and charming. When they heard this, they gritted their teeth and attacked Yi Guqin with all their might. Facing this group of beautiful women, Yi Guqin's eyes did not waver at all. He was like the Grim Reaper. Anyone who blocks me will die. Yi Guqin drew his sword and a violent blood-red true qi wrapped around the meteorite soft sword. A blood-red sword light swept across the sky. God-slaying sword technique, blood slaughter. Slash. As soon as the sword struck out, the figures of those female disciples instantly stopped in their tracks. Then, with a plop, more than 10 beautiful heads flew out and blood sprayed in all directions. Some of the blood even splashed on Pan Shuoyan's face and body as she retreated rapidly, causing her face to turn pale. Ah! Pan Shuoyan screamed. She was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Yi Guqin's eyes were cold as he quickly rushed forward. Hurry up and attack! Pan Shuoyan screamed. She was so scared that her heart was about to break. Only then did the surrounding people react. However, when they saw the string of corpses on the ground, they felt a chill run down their spines. Everyone, attack together! Xian Hao shouted coldly. Despite his words, he did not make a move. That was because he could sense that Yi Guqin was extremely dangerous. Xian Hao's words still carried weight. Some of the surrounding disciples could not suppress the greed in their hearts and directly attacked Yi Guqin and Mu Xingzu. Mu Xingzu had been following Yi Guqin closely. Yi Guqin's eyes flashed. He drew his sword and attacked Pan Shuoyan. Pan Shuoyan screamed again and summoned a lotus. As her true qi surged, the lotus formed a barrier that enveloped her body as if it was a form of protection. Yi Guqin, as long as I can survive this time, I will do everything I can to kill you in the future. After summoning the lotus to protect herself, Pan Shuoyan's heart seemed to have calmed down slightly. Her face was full of resentment. However, Yi Guqin's expression did not change at all. He drew his sword again and added the power of the Shura sword will. God-slaying sword technique, Yellow Spring. With a boom, blood-colored true qi rushed out like the yellow spring and drowned the lotus and Pan Shuoyan's bodies. Accompanied by a cracking sound, the lotus protection shattered into specks of light under the ferocious sword strike. No! Pan Shuoyan's face was as pale as paper. She quickly retreated. Yi Guqin was like the god of death. The blood-colored sword light flashed. Pan Shuoyan's left arm was broken and blood spurted out. Ah! Pan Shuoyan's heart was broken and her face was twisted. Yi Guqin's lips curled into a cold smile. He drew his sword again. Puchi! Pan Shuoyan's right arm was cut off. Another sword. Pan Shuoyan fell to the ground. Her slender left leg was sent flying. Another sword. Her smooth right leg was swung to the side. At this moment, Pan Shuoyan's 4 limbs were all cut off. Her body was paralyzed on the ground. Only her torso and head were left. Her beautiful face was frozen in horror. Of course, there was also a trace of deep regret in her eyes. If possible, Pan Shuoyan would not have provoked Yi Guqin. Let me go. Yi Guqin. I beg you. Pan Shuoyan's mouth was filled with blood as she stammered. Hell is a good place for people like you. Yi Guqin drew his sword again. Puchi. Blood spurted out. Pan Shuoyan's beautiful head was separated from her delicate body. The expression of the beautiful head that was sent flying was fixed on fear and regret. She did not expect that she would die in the hands of the person she called trash. However, it was too late for regret. The pride of the Consonance Palace, Pan Shuoyan of the 5 Transformations Divine Soul, was dead. At this moment, everyone's face was filled with horror. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. In their eyes, Yi Guqin, who had true qi, was like an Asura from hell who reaped the lives of people. No one could stop him. Chapter 324. Pan Shuoyan had died a horrible death. Her limbs weren't intact, and blood flowed everywhere. Everyone present felt a chill in their hearts when they saw the hellish scene before them, causing the hairs on their bodies to stand on end. This. Zither Fairy and the other female disciples of the Consonance Palace turned pale. Especially Zither Fairy, who had fought with Pan Shuoyan for such a long time. But now, Pan Shuoyan had died a horrible death in front of her. At this moment, Zither Fairy seemed to have seen Yi Guqin for the first time. She couldn't imagine that Yi Guqin, who was usually calm and indifferent, would be so powerful and terrifying when he wanted to kill. Killing a 5 transformation divine spirit was as easy as chopping vegetables. Who wouldn't be afraid? The hundreds of disciples from the various factions who were about to attack all stopped in their tracks. Their eyes were filled with fear. None of them had expected Yi Guqin, who possessed true energy, to be so terrifying. This. Xian Hao's eyes turned serious for the first time. At this moment, Yi Guqin gave him a sense of extreme danger. Disciples of the Consonance Blade Monarch Palace, attack. Although Yi Guqin's strength was terrifying, it wasn't enough to intimidate everyone. Mo Juechen from the Consonance Blade Monarch Palace ordered. He had a grudge with Yi Guqin for a long time. Bloodblade Mo Juechen has attacked. He's much stronger than Pan Shuoyan. Many spiritual sword arts, king sword arts, bronze pill cauldron, and primordial spirit realm experts can be obtained as long as we kill Yi Guqin and Mu Xingzu. Yeah, there are so many of us. Why should we be afraid of the two of them? Although Yi Guqin's ruthless methods could intimidate some people, the greed in their hearts once again overcame their rationality. With an expert like Mo Juechen taking the lead, the flames of war naturally rose again. Kill Yi Guqin and we can obtain all the opportunities. A person shouted. Then, the whole situation was affected. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 elite disciples attacked Yi Guqin. They could not hold back and attacked him. Rumble. Perhaps the majority of these 100-plus disciples were ordinary divine soul realm martial artists. However, at this moment, when they joined forces and unleashed their techniques at the same time, their might was enough to shake the heavens and earth. Yi Guqin, Ji Ling and the others felt their hearts tighten. But with Xian Hao's threat in front, they did not dare to act rashly. Yi Guqin's origin ring flashed as he summoned the blood cloud centipede. Then, Yi Guqin ordered it to protect Mu Xingzu. Although Mu Xingzu's strength had skyrocketed, under such a siege, it was obvious that she was struggling. Protect yourself, Yi Guqin said calmly as he charged forward with his sword in hand. Yes. Mu Xingzu's beautiful eyes also revealed a resolute look. She held the Aurora sword, and the immortal soul pearl in her sea of consciousness vibrated. An invisible and sharp soul sword intent surged in all directions. At this moment, the siege had officially begun. Facing the joint attack of more than 100 elites, Yi Guqin's blood-red genuine chi was like a dragon, and his sword chi filled the sky. He struck out with his sword, and the sword light overlapped with each other as if forming a huge net of sword light. The ultimate move of the boundless heaven sword art, inescapable net. The dense blood-red sword light intertwined into a net and collided with the powerful torrent of moves. With a loud explosion, the surrounding ground shook and countless cracks spread out. Even the dark blue stone bridge collapsed with a bang amidst this huge tremor. The heavens and the earth shook, and the surrounding forest was destroyed. After the loud bang, the heavens and the earth fell into a moment of dead silence. Yi Guqin, is he dead? A disciple of the Limitless Sword sect said in a surprised tone. However, at this moment, a blood-red sword light shot out from the dust cloud with a swoosh. Puff! The blood-red sword light directly pierced through the heart of the disciple of the Limitless Sword sect. They are not dead yet. Kill! Yi Guqin shouted. In the smoke and dust, he used the shadow step and his body pulled out a series of afterimages. Shadow kill sword art, vanishing shadow. Puff! 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 Yi Guqin swept his sword, and a series of heads rolled down. Blood splattered all over the sky. Yi Guqin, don't be so arrogant. Ji Yan of the 3 imperial palaces attacked. He took out the mysterious fire treasure fan, and the flame roared as it attacked Yi Guqin. Get lost! Yi Guqin's sword power changed again. The sword edge vibrated as though it was resonating with the void. Waves of powerful sword waves surged in all directions and turned the heavens and the earth upside down. The ultimate move of the void sword technique, 1,000 waves. In addition, Yi Guqin had already cultivated the sword technique to perfection, so the power of the 1,000 waves was multiplied. The void sword technique of the perfection realm. Xian Hao was surprised. Puff! Waves of shockwaves swept in all directions like raging waves, and the flames that filled the sky were directly scattered. Ji Yan's face was filled with shock. His figure retreated, but he was still hit. A series of cracking sounds rang out, and he spat out blood. When Yi Guqin did not have true energy, he could still barely contend with Ji Yan. Now that he had true energy, Ji Yan was nothing in his eyes. Not only that, some of the disciples who were slightly closer to Yi Guqin were bleeding from their 7 orifices. Their internal organs were directly shaken into meat paste, and they fell to the ground dead. In just one move, he injured Ji Yan and killed more than 10 elite disciples. At this moment, the world trembled. This is Yi Guqin's true strength after possessing true energy. In the distance, Ji Ling covered her red lips with both hands, and her face was filled with disbelief. She found it hard to imagine that Yi Guqin, who had always been calm and indifferent in the inner yard, would actually be so powerful after possessing true energy. Even Bai Zichen, Wang Xiaotian, and the others' expressions changed abruptly, and they were shocked. Yi Guqin, die. Blood saber Mo Juechen charged over with the sword burial saber in one hand. He consecutively slashed out 2 blood-colored saber lights, one horizontal and one vertical. They overlapped and formed a cross that attacked Yi Guqin. Blood Fiend Cross Slash. On the other side, Murong Ditian also attacked. His eyes were bloodshot as he directly took out the Mara sword and slashed it at Yi Guqin. Fang Chen and Prince Yuanyi also attacked together. This was a silent tacit understanding. They attacked together, wanting to completely remove the thorn in their hearts that was Yi Guqin. All of you, come at me together. Yi Guqin said loudly. The blood and qi in his body burned crazily, and he did not care whether it would dry up or not. At this moment, he only wanted to use the sword in his hand to vent the anger in his heart. My sword sect's Yi Guqin uses this sword to seek revenge. No, blood is seen. Sword, does not retract. Along with Yi Guqin's cold shout, the true energy in his body exploded violently, and he attacked again. God-slaying sword technique, 3 paths. 3 violent rivers of blood fiend sword chi suddenly blasted out and attacked the sky prides. Boom! 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 Unparalleled waves of sword chi rampaged wildly, overturning the earth and causing mud to fly everywhere. Yi Guqin's body was hit, and he suddenly retreated, a trace of blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth. At the same time, Mo Juechen, Murong Ditian, Fang Chen, Prince Yuanyi, and the others were also pushed back, and they were all heavily injured. Many disciples from the surrounding factions let out miserable cries as their bodies were directly torn apart by the 3 terrifying rivers of sword chi. The sky was dyed red, and a rain of blood fell. Yi Guqin, with one sword, killed until the heavens and earth went silent. Chapter 325. At this moment, the expressions on the faces of the elite disciples, including Ji Ling, Zither Fairy, and the others who were watching the battle from afar, froze in shock. They might have thought that Yi Guqin would be very strong after he recovered his true energy. However, they never thought that Yi Guqin would be able to defeat all the elites and sky prides with his strength alone. If this scene were to spread, it would definitely shock the entire Saint Origin dynasty. In the center of the battlefield, the ground was in a mess. The corpses of the disciples from various forces were strewn all over the ground, and their blood dyed the ground red. Yi Guqin's eyes were scarlet red, and his black robe was stained with blood. He held the meteor soft sword in his hand and pointed it at the ground. Drops of blood dripped down from the tip of the sword. Kill. Yi Guqin didn't waste any time because the insane demon blood ignition pill had caused great damage to his body. Even with Yi Guqin's perfect body and vigorous blood essence, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Therefore, Yi Guqin had to end the battle as soon as possible. He wanted to use thunderous means to kill until everyone trembled in fear. Swoosh! Yi Guqin's meteor soft sword slashed out and slit the throat of another limitless sword sect's disciple. Then, he changed the direction of his sword and stabbed the chest of another saber-sealing King Palace's disciple. Kill! Attack together! Murong Ditian, Shintu Miao, Prince Yuanyi, Fang Chen, Ji Yan, and the others attacked again. Yi Guqin circulated the blood essence in his body and burned it to the extreme. Even when facing a group of sky prides, Yi Guqin didn't have a trace of fear. In his body, the green heaven-splitting sword's soul burst out. With Yi Guqin's current amount of true energy, he directly summoned all 10,000 heaven-splitting sword souls. 10,000 heaven-splitting sword souls burst out from Yiguchen's body like a green sword river, splitting the heavens and splitting the earth. Boom! 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 10,000 heaven-splitting sword souls swept out like a green dragon sword. What? What kind of technique is this? Not everyone had seen Yiguchen's methods in the endless plains. Hence, when the heaven-splitting sword soul was summoned, endless screams could be heard from the surroundings. Puff! A green sword soul pierced into the body of a disciple from the 3 imperial palaces. Within a few breaths, his internal organs, tendons, and bones had all been cut into pieces. Not only these elite disciples, even Murong Ditian, Shintu Miao and the others were unable to take care of themselves. The heaven-splitting sword soul was not only powerful, but it was also an AoE skill. It was most suitable for a situation like this. Puff! 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 At every moment, there were elite disciples dying under the heaven-splitting sword soul. On the other hand, Yiguchen was like an Azura that had unleashed death. His eyes were incomparably cold. He didn't stay idle either. With every step he took, he would kill a person. Yiguchen turned a blind eye to the sorrowful cries in his ears. Because he had already said that if he retreated, he would be safe and sound, but if he attacked, he would be killed by his sword. Within a short span of a dozen breaths, Yiguchen had taken 30 steps. With every step he took, Yiguchen would swing his sword. With every swing of the sword, an elite disciple would die with a miserable cry. 30 blood steps. With every step, a person would die. No one could stop Yiguchen. Yiguchen is actually so powerful. At this moment, even Bai Zichen, Wang Xiaotian and the others who were watching from afar felt the corners of their eyes twitch. They were terrified. On the battlefield, the massacre was still ongoing. Puff! With a swing of the sword, Yiguchen pierced the throat of a Saint Origin Academy disciple. Blood spurted out with a puff. Yiguchen, you're too arrogant. You've killed so many disciples. No one can save you. The young Marquis Fang Chen was clad in black and gold battle armor and held a black and gold spear in his hand. At this moment, there was blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that he had been injured in the previous battle. With Yiguchen's 7th Divine Soul Transformation True Qi, Fang Chen didn't have the slightest advantage. Not to mention the elites, my sword sect will even kill you geniuses without hesitation. Yiguchen's sword vibrated as he directly executed Vanishing Shadow and rushed toward Fang Chen. Arrogant! Fang Chen coldly shouted as his black and gold spear swept out like a wild dragon. Bang! In the battle between the two sides, Yiguchen had the upper hand. Fang Chen felt a terrifying force coming from the spear, shaking his arm to the point that his bones were about to shatter. Yiguchen's physical body is so terrifying. Fang Chen repeatedly retreated as he vomited blood. Yiguchen, you must die today. On the side, Mo Juechen once again charged over with the sword burial saber. Bang! Yiguchen charged forward with his sword, once again bursting with sword chi and saber light. Ripples spread out in all directions. Mysterious heaven sword art, sword shaking the universe. On the other side, Murong Ditian wielded the Mara sword and executed the ultimate move of the mysterious heaven sword art. The sword light illuminated the sky as it chopped down on Yiguchen. Scram! Yiguchen's eyes emitted cold lightning. The current Murong Ditian wasn't a threat to him at all. The meteor soft sword vibrated and resonated with the void. The void sword art, 1,000-layered waves, was executed once again. In an instant, more than 1,000 sword waves swept out in all directions as if it had set off a spatial storm. The surrounding earth cracked and shattered, and the mountain rocks were all shattered into dust. Boom! 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 The sound of vomiting blood could be heard from all directions. Yiguchen's body also trembled as blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He was overdrawing his body's chi and blood at every moment. Yi Guchen, how long can you last? Just at this moment, Xian Hao, who hadn't made a move since the beginning, spoke in a faint tone. As soon as he spoke, Yi Guchen's expression didn't change, but his eyes slightly sank. Xian Hao's words caused the hundreds of disciples who hadn't made a move yet to feel the suppressed greed in their hearts. The Mad Demon Blood Ignition Pill has a time limit. After this time limit, not only will you instantly lose all your qi and blood, but your qi and blood will also drop to the lowest level. At that time, I won't even need to make a move and you will immediately fall into a state of death. Xian Hao revealed the truth. Ah! Yi Guchen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with one hand. Let's not talk about what will happen next for now. If I make a move now, even you, Xian Hao, won't be able to withstand it. Yi Guchen coldly said. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding people were shocked. In the Saint Origin dynasty, there weren't many people who dared to speak to Xian Hao with such an attitude. Yi Guchen. Xian Hao's indifferent expression darkened. He was also a prideful person. The reason he hadn't made a move before was because he didn't want Yi Guchen, who had consumed the Mad Demon Blood Ignition Pill, to fight with him. It wouldn't benefit Xian Hao at all. However, now that the Mad Demon Blood Ignition Pill's time limit was running out, Xian Hao naturally didn't have so many scruples. Yi Guchen, I, Xian Hao, will let you know what it means to be a frog at the bottom of a well. Xian Hao's eyes were cold as the profoundine sword on his back flew into the air and landed in his hand. Xian Hao had finally made a move. Chapter 326. Boom! Vigorous genuine qi of the 9 transformations of the divine soul gushed out of Xian Hao's body like a collapsing dam. This terrifying amount of genuine qi was even stronger than Yi Guchen's after consuming the Mad Demon Blood Ignition Elixir. Senior brother Xian Hao is finally making a move. With Xian Hao making a move, it's enough to restrain Yi Guchen. They won't be able to survive. Seeing that Xian Hao was finally about to make a move, the hearts of the hesitant elite disciples began to move again. Because of the killing that Yi Guchen had caused, they were terrified and did not dare to make a move. However, it was different now. With the great Xian Hao blocking the fiend Yi Guchen, these people naturally dared to make a move. Swoosh! Xian Hao drew out the dark Yin sword and charged towards Yi Guchen. A vast, soft, and icy sword essence was emitted from it. Is it that vague sword essence again? Yi Guchen's scarlet eyes flashed with a sharp light. After Xian Hao had emitted that blurry sword essence several times, Yi Guchen had a vague idea of what was going on. But this made Yi Guchen even more serious about Xian Hao. He was a strong opponent. Yi Guchen's fallen star soft sword soared across the sky, also exuding a mysterious sword intent. Hard and soft sword essence. Xian Hao's eyes dimmed. He knew that Yi Guchen possessed a hard and soft sword essence. Clang! An incomparably ear-piercing sound of metal clashing burst forth. Xian Hao and Yi Guchen were engaged in a bloody battle. Clang! 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 Xian Hao's expression was calm. The dark Yin sword in his hand swept across the sky, causing the surroundings to become bone-chillingly cold. Drops of rain appeared from the void. Each drop of rain contained sword essence and swept towards Yi Guchen. Rain God Sword Technique, Sorrowful Rain. If Yi Guchen did not have genuine qi in the past, he would have needed the blood cloud puppet to contend with him. But now, Yi Guchen had the strength to contend with Xian Hao with the sword in his hand. Swoosh! God-slaying sword technique, Soul Demon. A scarlet, blood-red light spread along the blade of the sword. It tore through the rain of swords with a demonic, terrifying presence as it shot towards Xian Hao. A trace of surprise appeared in Xian Hao's eyes. Even Xian Hao could not help but take Yi Guchen seriously in his current state. His sword art changed again, and actually caused a slight change in the surrounding heaven and earth. A mass of dark clouds accumulated above Xian Hao. Following Xian Hao's attack, a violent rainstorm fell from the dark clouds. It was extremely dense. Every drop of rain was sword chi and contained sword will. A single drop of rain could instantly kill a third transformation divine soul martial artist. Not to mention, the sword chi that filled the sky was like a torrential downpour. Its momentum was astonishing. It's actually the ultimate move of the divine rain sword technique, the rainstorm sword of extinction. Senior brother Xian Hao has actually cultivated a spiritual level sword technique to the transformation level. Xian Mo, Xian Ying, and the other disciples of the limitless sword sect Sun Moon Hall were all shocked. It was extremely difficult to cultivate a spiritual level sword art to the transformative level. Even the sky prides of the Sun Moon Hall would find it difficult to do so. However, Xian Hao, who was gifted by the heavens, had such an ability. Seeing this, Yi Guqian's eyes flashed and he attacked again. His figure drew out an afterimage. Ignoring the sword rain, he attacked Xian Hao with his sword as if he wanted to perish together with him. Seeing Yi Guqian's desperate move, Xian Hao frowned slightly. However, in the next moment, Xian Hao seemed to have sensed something. His calm expression suddenly changed. His figure blurred almost instantly. He used the exceptional Void Sword Essence ability and as if he was shuttling through the void, he flashed and appeared 3 feet away. Almost at the same time, the meteorite soft sword's edge cut through the afterimage left by Xian Hao. Yi Guqian's figure actually appeared behind Xian Hao's previous position. Yi Guqian's figure in front of him was directly pierced by the sword rain. There was not a single drop of blood as he dissipated directly. Blood Listening Tower's assassin sword technique? Xian Hao's expression was slightly serious. If not for Xian Hao's sharp senses and rich battle experience, coupled with the Void Sword Essence's ghostly speed, he might have really been killed. Yi Guqian sighed in his heart. Xian Hao was indeed incomparable to ordinary sky prides. His previous move was naturally the ultimate move of the Shadow Assassination Sword technique, instant kill. This move was an assassination move. If it was an ordinary sky pride, they would definitely not be able to dodge this move if they were not prepared. However, Xian Hao managed to dodge it. Xian Hao's eyes were filled with coldness as he almost died. The blurry sword intent in his body once again spread out, bringing with it a surge of extreme yin energy. The surrounding cold air condensed. I understand now. Xian Hao, I didn't expect you to have the exceptional yin-yang sword essence. Yi Guqian's gaze suddenly froze as he said coldly. Oh, you finally figured it out. Xian Hao did not look surprised at all. His 2 mystical pattern divine weapons, the Dark Yin sword and the Dark Yang sword, were perfect for his exceptional yin-yang sword essence. However, you still haven't truly comprehended the yin-yang sword essence. It's only a vague embryonic form. It's more like someone forced it on you. Yi Guqian hit the nail on the head. You. Xian Hao's eyes were cold. However, the truth was just as Yi Guqian said. Xian Hao had not truly comprehended the yin-yang sword essence. His yin-yang sword essence was indeed imparted by someone. And the person who imparted it was the sect master of the Limitless Sword Sect, Xian Wuji. However, if Xian Hao could really completely comprehend the yin-yang sword essence, he would have 2 exceptional sword essences in addition to the void sword essence. By then, even Yan Wushuang and the others would not be able to resist. Do you know why you can't completely comprehend the yin-yang sword essence? Yi Guqian asked with a strange gaze. Why? Xian Hao's eyes were cold. Ah. Yi Guqian did not say anything else. The meteorite soft sword flew across the sky, the sword edge vibrating and resonating with the void. Void sword technique, 1,000 waves. Xian Hao saw that Yi Guqian seemed to be playing with him, and his face was frozen. As soon as his dark yin sword came out, it resonated with the void and produced a strong vibrating force. Void sword technique, 1,000 waves. What the two used was the same void sword technique, and it was the ultimate killing move, 1,000 waves. Rumble. The transparent void was like a war drum being beaten, and it kept making vibrating sounds. Waves of powerful transparent sword waves spread out in all directions. Puff! 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 Not to mention Yiguchen and Xian Hao in the field, some of the elite disciples around them who were affected directly vomited blood and flew backward. Some people who were slightly closer were directly shocked to death by the two waves of powerful aftershocks. Xian Hao's eyes flickered, and he directly added the power of the void sword essence. Dong! Xian Hao's sword wave seemed to have been added, and it exploded again with a bang. Puff! Yiguchen choked on a mouthful of blood, and he was blasted back dozens of steps. On the other hand, Xian Hao was pushed back 5 to 6 steps. It's a success. Senior brother Xian Hao has pushed back Yiguchen. Seeing that Yiguchen was pushed back, not only the people of the Limitless Sword sect, but the other elite disciples of the 3 imperial palaces, the sealed Saber King Hall, and the Saint Origin Academy also heaved a sigh of relief. This was because the shock that Yiguchen had brought to them was too great. Yiguchen was like a killing immortal. If Xian Hao did not intervene, almost no one could stop him. At this moment, seeing that Yiguchen was pushed back for the first time, the surrounding elite disciples were relieved. Disciples of the Limitless Sword sect, listen up. Capture Mu Xingzu alive. I want to study the sword essence in her body, Xian Hao said coldly. Yes. Many disciples of the Sun Moon Hall, including Xian Mo and Xian Ying, responded in unison. However, the eyes of the disciples of the other forces also flickered. Xian Hao was currently fighting with Yiguchen and could not split himself. Mu Xingzu had the opportunity to become a primordial soul realm expert, which was enough to make everyone envious. Ji Yan of the 3 imperial palaces held the mysterious fire fan and charged toward Mu Xingzu. Nia Ling, Shintu Miao, and the others from the sealed Saber King Hall also attacked. Fang Chen and Crown Prince Yuanyi from the Saint Origin Academy also attacked. In addition, the hundreds of elite disciples who had been intimidated by Yiguchen and did not attack for the time being no longer had any scruples when they saw that Yiguchen was being suppressed by Xian Hao. They were like hungry tigers pouncing on their prey as they charged toward Mu Xingzu. Although Mu Xingzu had the blood cloud centipede by her side to protect her, how could she withstand the attacks of so many elites? She was instantly in great danger. Xian Hao, you are courting death. Seeing this, Yiguchen's eyes were as cold as an ancient abyss. A terrifying blood aura seemed to be about to explode from his body. Oh, are you preparing to use the Azura sword essence to fight to the death? After Xian Hao finished speaking, a mysterious and sharp sword essence also surged from his body, causing the surrounding void to vibrate. Today, I am going to take Mu Xingzu away. No one can stop me. You, Xian Hao, are no exception. Yiguchen completely burned all the blood in his body and exploded with a terrifying amount of vital energy. However, in Xian Hao's eyes, it was like the final radiance of the setting sun. Boom! Xian Hao also activated the sword essence of the void. The surrounding void vibrated, and streaks of sword chi gathered and roared like dragons. Yiguchen exploded with the Azura sword essence, and the blood-red sword chi soared into the sky. Xian Hao activated the sword essence of the void. The void vibrated, and the ground was overturned. The two of them collided like 2 shooting stars. In an instant, the sharp sound of swords shook the heavens and earth. Chapter 327. The ferocious sword chi rippled like a tide, spreading in all directions from the point of collision. This was a collision between 2 peerless sword essences. Yiguchen's dark pupils were completely swallowed by the color of blood. Eye of Azura, activate. Xian Hao's body was surrounded by transparent space ripples. Streaks of transparent sword chi seemed to be shuttling through the void. Their speed was extremely fast and incomparably ghostly. Clang! 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 In a short span of time, Yiguchen and Xian Hao had exchanged more than 100 blows. Sparks flew as the swords collided. Yi Guchen, do you know that I haven't even used half of my strength? Xian Hao spoke as he attacked, as if trying to shake Yi Guchen's mind. What? Yi Guchen didn't react to Xian Hao's words. Instead, Ji Ling and the others were shocked by Xian Hao's strength. Ha! Then how do you know my true strength? Yi Guchen's state of mind wasn't something that could be shaken by a few words. Are you still going to fight to the death? Xian Hao attacked again, his body shuttling through the void. The void vibrated, accompanied by the extreme yin power, and spread out with a loud bang. Yi Guchen used the hard and soft sword essence, combined with the Taiji sword principle, and absorbed the terrifying sword qi. Then, with a loud bang, it exploded. The swift and fierce sword qi tore through the void and shot explosively towards Xian Hao. The Taiji sword principle was a mysterious defensive sword principle, and Xian Hao was surprised. He attacked again, colliding with the rebounding sword qi torrent with a loud bang, and his body retreated continuously. Yi Guchen used wave-like subtle steps and fought with Xian Hao. On the other side, Mu Xingzhu was in great danger as she was besieged by the crowd. Although the blood cloud puppet was strong, it was only a puppet after all. Although this puppet is strong, as long as someone keeps it occupied, the others can take down Mu Xingzhu in an instant. Prince Yuanyi said. Even so, it was impossible for the people of the various major powers to work together. It was also because of their scheming against each other that Mu Xingzhu was barely able to survive. Otherwise, Mu Xingzhu wouldn't have been able to hold on for even a moment with these hundreds of elites. Mu Xingzhu's sword intent is what senior brother Xian Hao wants. Who dares to stop him? Xian Mo, Xian Ying, and the other disciples of the Sun Moon Hall made their moves. Murong Ditian's expression was heavy, but he also chose to make his move. Opportunities belong to those who are fated. If Xian Hao really dares to do anything to me, the other two emperors of the three imperial palaces will not let him off. Ji Yan did not have any scruples. The three royal palaces and the three young emperors. Above him, there were two other top-notch geniuses. Mo Juechen, Nia Ling, and the others from the saber-sealing monarch hall wanted to seize the opportunity by themselves. They didn't care about the limitless sword sex group at all. In such a chaotic situation, everyone would occasionally attack Mu Xingzhu and the blood cloud puppet. At other times, they would fight amongst themselves. Even so, Mu Xingzhu's injuries were still worsening. What was even more despicable was that Prince Yuanyi, Fang Chen, Murong Ditian, Shintu Miao, Ji Yan, and the others were taking turns to attack Mu Xingzhu. At the same time, the others kept the blood cloud puppet busy so that it couldn't protect Mu Xingzhu. Splat! Mu Xingzhu's dress was torn in many places. Fresh blood flowed out from her fair skin. It was a glaring sight. Blood was also flowing from the corner of her mouth. Her injuries were very serious. If it was any other woman in this situation, they would definitely not be able to hold on. However, Mu Xingzhu's eyes were filled with unswerving determination. She looked into the distance. Yi Guchen's clothes were stained with blood as he fought with Xian Hao. How could she give up now? I, Mu Xingzhu, will never give up. I will also not be a burden to senior brother Yi. Mu Xingzhu gritted her teeth as she activated the indestructible soul pearl in her mind. In an instant, a terrifying soul energy that was as thick as the ocean swept out with a loud rumble. Moreover, it wasn't just a soul energy attack. It was also a peerless soul sword intent. The soul sword intent was extremely ghostly. It didn't attack the physical body but the divine spirit. What? What is this? What a terrifying soul energy. Why does it feel like it isn't any weaker than senior brother Xian Hao's? No. It's not just soul energy. There's also sword qi. By the time some people reacted, it was already too late. No. Some of the elite disciples from the various factions cried out in pain. The horrifying shockwave that contained the soul sword essence swept out in all directions like a tidal wave, engulfing hundreds of elite skyprides. Among them, at least one-third of the weaker elite disciples let out miserable howls. It was as if a sharp sword had pierced the sea of consciousness in their minds and shredded their souls. Puff! Continuous sounds of blood being spat out were heard. One-third of the disciples had their sea of consciousness shattered by the soul sword intent. Their bodies fell to the ground, lifeless. However, there were still 300 to 400 disciples left. Most of them had a splitting headache and their divine senses were not light. Only Ji Yan, Fang Chen, and Nye Ling, who were around the seventh transformation of the godly soul, could withstand the shockwave. Even so, their minds were shaken, and they had a splitting headache. This Mu Xingzu is so powerful. The group of people in the inner yard was shocked by Mu Xingzu's move. After activating the power of the indestructible soul pearl, Mu Xingzu's pretty face was pale. Her aura weakened again, and she fell to the bottom. She couldn't even stand properly. Ha, you're already an arrow at the end of its flight. You won't be able to use that move a second time. Crown Prince Yuan charged forward. On the other side, the Limitless Sword Sect and the Sealed Saber Royal Hall also charged forward. Puff! Mu Xingzu was sent flying again. It was difficult for her to continue. With so many people, it was like a war of attrition. Each person attacked several times, while the rest defended against the Blood Cloud Centipede's attacks. When Ji Ling saw this, she couldn't help but curse at how shameless they were. She couldn't help but want to attack, but she was stopped by Bai Zichen. What are you doing? As an inner yard disciple, Mu Xingzu is being humiliated. Are you just going to stand by and do nothing? Ji Ling's eyes were red. She couldn't bear to see Mu Xingzu in such a miserable state. Didn't you hear what Xianhao said? If you attack alone, all the inner yard disciples will be implicated. Bai Zichen said coldly. This is where you're inferior to Yiguchen. Ji Ling gritted her teeth. With Bai Zichen stopping her, she couldn't attack. When Bai Zichen heard this, he didn't say anything, but there was a sinister look in his eyes. Mu Xingzhu's side was on the verge of death. She kept spitting out blood from her mouth, dyeing her clothes red. However, Mu Xingzhu still didn't give up. Boom! After another exchange, Mu Xingzhu's body was sent flying. There were countless wounds on her body. Each wound represented a ruthless attack by someone who wanted to snatch away her opportunity. I, Mu Xingzhu, can't give up. As long as I'm still alive, Mu Xingzhu was extremely resilient. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to endure for so long under Qin Lin's oppression. But now, Mu Xingzhu felt as if her vision had become blurry. This is the moment. Seeing Mu Xingzhu's condition, Prince Yuan and the others joined forces and attacked the Blood Cloud Centipede, causing it to retreat a few hundred feet. At this moment, other than Xianhao, who was fighting Yiguchen, and Ji Ling, who had retreated far away, the other hundreds of elites all rushed towards Mu Xingzhu. As long as they got Mu Xingzhu, they would be able to obtain the opportunity to become a primordial soul realm elite. Who wouldn't be crazy? Senior Ning, Senior Brother Yi, Xingzhu, I've disappointed you. Mu Xingzhu's vision became more and more blurry. A tear fell from the corner of her eye. She wasn't crying for herself. She was crying for letting Yiguchen and Ning down. Xingzhu, I've said that I'll take you out of here. At this moment, Mu Xingzhu seemed to hear Yiguchen's whisper. Mu Xingzhu tried to open her eyes. Then, she saw it. It was the endless blood sea and the blood-colored 18 levels of hell above the blood sea. The Azura Blood Sea. Chapter 328. The ferocious sword intent turned into a sea of blood. A terrifying aura surged out of Yiguchen's body like an ancient volcano erupting. Along with the surging sea of blood, an equally illusory 18 levels of blood rose from the sea of blood. This was the Azura Sword Intense Domain of Sword, the Azura Blood Sea. The Sword Domain was an ability that could only be executed after one's sword intent had transformed into Sword Dao. Therefore, Yiguchin could only use the illusory domain of sword with his current ability. But no matter what, the domain of sword was still a domain of sword. Even if it was illusory, its power was still terrifying. This was the second time Yiguchin had used the Azura Blood Sea. The first time was when Su Jianxue had used her life to block the innate sword embryo for Yiguchin. Yiguchin seemed to have been possessed by the devil after using the Azura Blood Sea. His eyes were scarlet as he looked at Mu Xingzu, who was being attacked by the crowd and whose clothes were stained with blood. An uncontrollable rage erupted from the bottom of his heart. If he couldn't even protect the people around him, then how could Yiguchin call himself a sword grandmaster? Rumble. Yiguchin pushed his true chi to the limit and attacked with all his might. The 18 levels of the Azura Blood Sea formed by the Azura Sword Intent rumbled as it swept out in all directions like waves crashing onto the shore. At this moment, even the elites who wanted to capture and kill Mu Xingzhu felt their hearts tremble in fear. They felt a terrifying murderous intent lock onto them. The terrifying sea of blood made everyone tremble in fear. All of you are infuriating. Yiguchin's voice was low and hoarse. His scarlet Azura eyes swept across the several hundred people present. Everyone who met his gaze felt a chill run down their spines, as if they had fallen into an ice cave. A sense of terror that made one's scalp go numb surged up their spines. This. Yiguchin, what a terrifying killing intent. Some of the weaker ones were even trembling all over, their teeth chattering. Yiguchin, you are powerless today. Xian Hao shook his head slightly. Heh. You're the ones who brought this upon yourselves. Yiguchin raised his meteor soft sword again. In an instant, the world fell silent, then. Boom. An indescribably terrifying aura erupted from Yiguchin's body. The fallen star soft sword seemed to be covered with a layer of blood. A sharp sword aura that caused one's entire body to turn numb shot out, splitting the sky and shaking the ground. God-slaying sword technique. Yama. Boom. Yiguchin's low voice seemed to come from the depths of hell. Boundless and terrifying blood-red sword intent rose from the fallen star soft sword. In the end, it actually condensed into a huge, blurry blood-red figure behind Yiguchin. That huge blood-red figure was like the king of hell, ready to harvest everyone's lives. Swoosh. Yiguchin stood above the 18 layers of blood prison and swung his sword horizontally. As he swung his sword, the huge blood-red figure behind him also swung its sword across the sky at the same time. The fifth move of the god-slaying sword technique, Yama. When the sword was swung, the heavens shook. When the sword was swung, the coldness of hell. When the sword was swung, the blood-red sword light split the sky and shook the earth in all directions. Boom. Even Xian Hao's expression changed abruptly before this sword strike. Ultimate sword technique, endless sword. Xian Hao hurriedly raised his sword to block. He used his core sword technique and thousands of sword shadows swept across the sky. However, even Xian Hao could not block Yiguchin's all-out attack in time. He retreated rapidly and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, that wasn't the end of the attack. It continued to charge towards the hundreds of elite sky prides who were surrounding Mu Xingzhu. No. Not to mention the weaker disciples, even Ji Yan, Fang Chen, Mo Juechen, and the others were shocked. They hurriedly retreated as they tried to defend themselves. Poof. 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 The elites from the various forces exploded into minced meat in the blood-red sword light. Blood splattered everywhere and dyed the vast earth red. In the end, only half of the densely packed figures were left. More than 100 elite disciples exploded into a puddle of blood under Yiguchin's Shura sword. One sword to kill 100 people. Not only that, even Xian Hao and the other elites could only temporarily hide their power. As for Ji Yan, Fang Chen, and the rest, they were also severely injured. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and their combat power decreased by more than half. The 3-foot sword opened a bloody path. One sword was invincible. Ye Guqin used the 3-foot-long sword in his hand to open up a bloody path of survival. Xingzhu, let's go. The vermilion bird wings appeared behind Ye Guqin's back. He dashed in front of Mu Xingzhu and hugged her delicate body. He kept the blood cloud puppet and dashed out along the bloody path opened by Yama's sword. Puchi. Xian Hao spat out a mouthful of blood as he watched Ye Guqin's figure disappear into the distance. Even he did not expect Ye Guqin's Godslayer sword skill to be so powerful. Of course, Ye Guqin's sword was the 5th form of the Godslayer sword skill. Its power was comparable to a king sword skill. In addition to the Shura sword intent, the 18 levels of the Shura blood sea had an amplifying effect on the Godslayer sword skill. Ye Guqin's sword was so powerful that it could shock the heavens with all kinds of support. This, everyone present, including Ji Ling, Bai Zichen, Zither Fairy, and the others who were far away, were stunned. One sword to kill 100 people. What kind of concept was that? Moreover, the people Ye Guqin killed were not ordinary disciples. They were the elites of various forces. If news of this battle spread, the entire Saint Origin dynasty would be shaken. At this moment, the eyes of Ye Guqin's enemies were filled with fear. Most of them were severely injured and would not be able to chase after Ye Guqin in a short period of time. As for the ordinary elite disciples, they were already scared out of their wits by Ye Guqin's Shura sword. Even if they had the strength to spare, they did not dare to chase after him. It's too terrifying. He's not a sword master. He's a demon. A sword demon. Some disciples sat on the ground, paralyzed, with cold sweat all over their bodies. The ground was scarlet red. Broken bones, severed limbs, and blood flowed everywhere. All of this was caused by Ye Guqin's sword. The Void Sword realm will close in less than 7 days. I will be guarding the teleportation formation in the center. If Ye Guqin wants to leave this place, he must go through the teleportation formation, Xian Hao said coldly as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The remaining people's eyes gradually lit up when they heard this. That's right. Ye Guqin only has such strength because he took the insane demon burning blood elixir. When the effect of the elixir wears off, not only will his strength drop, but he will also be weaker than before. Even his life will be in danger, Prince Yuanyi said thoughtfully. Some of the people who were terrified of Ye Guqin also thought about it after hearing this. That's right. Ye Guqin only has such strength because he took the insane demon burning blood elixir. When the effect of the elixir wears off, he will not be a threat. Yes, we will wait for him at the teleportation formation and wait for him to take the bait. I want to avenge my senior and junior brothers. For a moment, the people who were scared out of their wits by Ye Guqin became active again. They all rushed towards the teleportation formation in the center of the Void Sword realm. As long as the teleportation formation was guarded, unless Ye Guqin wanted to be trapped in the Void Sword realm, he would definitely appear. Seeing everyone's reaction, the people on Ji Ling's side suddenly changed their expressions. They are forcing Ye Guqin and Mu Xingzhu into a dead end. Ji Ling gritted his teeth but felt powerless. However, at this moment, Ye Guqin had already flown 100 miles away with Mu Xingzhu. Chapter 329. In the sky, a figure with a pair of wings on his back flew far away. When Ye Guqin had escaped far enough, he could no longer hold on. His body fell directly to the ground. Boom! Blood flowed out of Ye Guqin's mouth and the thick blood-colored Jin Qi on his body dissipated. His aura immediately fell to the bottom. An extremely weak feeling of emptiness spread out from every cell in his body. Senior brother Yi, Mu Xingzhu's condition was only slightly better than Ye Guqin's. She was also extremely weak and her body was covered in wounds and blood. Ye Guqin forced himself to hold on and took out the 2 quasi-sage pills from his bronze furnace. These 2 sage-to-be pills had the effect of recovering qi and blood, as well as healing injuries. Xingzhu, take it. Yi Guqin gave one of the quasi-sage pills to Mu Xingzhu and swallowed one himself. Only after swallowing the quasi-sage pill did Yi Guqin feel a little better. However, that was all. The effect of the Mad Demon Blood Blaze pill was too overbearing. Not to mention with Yi Guqin's current cultivation base. Even life and death chamber experts would have to think twice before taking the Mad Demon Blood Blaze pill. The reason why Yi Guqin was able to withstand such overbearing medicinal power was because of his perfect physical body and strong qi and blood. In addition, he had the golden body liquid, which greatly increased the strength of his body. That was why he dared to take it. However, even so, Yi Guqin's injuries were severe and he was extremely weak. Senior brother Yi, I'm sorry. It's all because of Xingzhu. Mu Xingzhu's eyes turned red as she looked at Yi Guqin, who was extremely weak and pale. It has nothing to do with you. Heal your body first. Yi Guqin's voice was weak. Mu Xingzhu bit her lips and didn't say anything. However, the determination in her watery eyes became even stronger. I'm still too weak. I have to become stronger. Mu Xingzhu swore in her heart. She didn't want the people she cared about to get hurt because of her. Just like that, 3 days passed. After consuming the quasi-sage elixir, Yi Guqin took out many supreme-grade healing elixirs. However, even with so many pills, Yi Guqin and Mu Xingzhu's injuries were still very serious. They had only recovered slightly. But at this moment, there were less than 4 days before the Void Sword Realm was completely closed. Let's not talk about whether these 4 days are enough for me to break through. Just based on the current situation, my chances of breaking through will be greatly reduced. Yi Guqin thought to himself. His face was pale and his qi and blood were low. The effects of the Mad Demon Blood Ignition pill were too overbearing. Even after recuperating for 3 days and consuming the quasi-sage pill, it would be difficult for him to recover in a short period of time. Mu Xingzhu, on the other hand, was slightly better off because she was only injured. Unlike Yi Guqin, who had to swallow pills to squeeze out the potential of his qi and blood, she recovered quite quickly. Senior brother Yi, in less than 4 days, the Void Sword Realm will be closed. At that time, it will be very dangerous, Mu Xingzhu said. I know. As for Xian Hao and the others, they will definitely wait outside the formation to leave the Void Sword Realm. Although my Azura technique can deter some people, they also know that I have such strength because of the pills. In the future, they won't be too afraid of me. Yi Guqin sighed slightly. Then what should we do? We can't be trapped here. At least. Senior brother Yi, you must go out. Mu Xingzhu stared at Yi Guqin and there seemed to be some kind of determination in her eyes. Xingzhu, I know what you're thinking. Get rid of that thought. I, Yi Guqin, will not let the people I care about sacrifice to seek a way out for myself, Yi Guqin said calmly. Senior brother Yi, hearing the words, the people I care about, Mu Xingzhu's eyes were glittering. Her sense of longing and respect for Yi Guqin, which was originally like a master, gradually had a different kind of feeling. But when she thought of the crisis in front of her, Mu Xingzhu's eyes dimmed slightly. I will let you leave the Void Sword Realm safely. Yi Guqin's eyes surged with light, as if he was thinking about something. Senior brother Yi. Mu Xingzhu's face changed slightly. Yi Guqin's words were to let her leave safely, not leave together. You don't have to worry about me. When the time comes, just listen to my orders. I will ensure your safety. Yi Guqin did not say much, but there was a trace of tiredness between his eyebrows. No, Xingzhu said that in life and death, I will be with senior brother Yi. Mu Xingzhu said stubbornly. If you don't listen to me, then we will sever all ties and be strangers. Yi Guqin closed his eyes and said. Mu Xingzhu's delicate body trembled slightly when she heard this, and her face turned pale. If they really severed all ties, it would make Mu Xingzhu's heart ache even more. Xingzhu. I understand. Mu Xingzu clenched her fists tightly, and her fingernails pierced her skin slightly, oozing drops of blood. Xian Hao, don't push me too far. Otherwise, even if I die, it will be difficult for you to live. Yi Guqin sighed and whispered in his heart, but the determination and coldness in his eyes became more and more intense. As the days passed, the day of the Void Sword Realm's closing finally arrived. The only way to leave the Void Sword Realm was to enter the transmission formation at the center of the entire Void Sword Realm. Moreover, the transmission formation would not last for a long time, only for a short while. Therefore, in the past, the disciples of many forces would arrive at the transmission formation in advance to avoid missing the time. Once they missed the time, they could only stay in the Void Sword Realm for a whole year. However, in a completely closed Void Sword Realm, the degree of danger was almost 10 times or 100 times higher. Even the hidden latch of life and death and spiritual bridge of heaven and earth experts could not guarantee that they could survive. Therefore, no one was willing to stay in the Void Sword Realm for a year. At that moment, outside the core transmission formation in the center, the disciples of the seven forces had already gathered together. However, compared to the past, the number of disciples who survived this time was pitifully small. Among the disciples who died, a small number of them died accidentally in some dangerous places or formations. Most of them were killed by Mu Xingzu and Yi Guqin. This time, in the Void Sword Realm, apart from the Sword Sect's inner yard of the Forest of Pagodas, 9 Profound Sect, and Lingxi Palace, the disciples of the other forces suffered heavy casualties. Almost half of them died. This was a shocking number. If the news were to spread, the higher-ups of the various forces would be so angry that they would vomit blood. Yi Guqin, will you walk right into the trap? Xian Hao stood before the transmission formation and looked into the distance. Not only him, but Murong Ditian, Xian Mo, Xian Ying. Conferred Saber King Palace, Nia Ling, Mo Juechen, Shintu Miao, Zhou Yan, Yan Kun. 3 Imperial Palaces, Ji Yan, and the others. Saint Origin Academy's Prince Yuanyi and Fang Chen. Sword Sect's Forest of Pagodas, Ji Ling, Bai Zichen, and the others. 9 Profound Sects Chen Yi, Bai Yanji, and the others. Lingxi Palace's Zither Fairy and the others. All the disciples of the 7 forces in the Void Sword Realm were gathered outside the transmission formation. It could be said that this was Xian Hao's scheme. He would stay here and see if Yi Guqin would walk right into the trap. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, rumble. As the time approached, the transmission formation also let out a rumbling sound. Rays of light from the transmission formation flickered. The surrounding space seemed to fluctuate. One could faintly see cracks in the space. This meant that the transmission formation was about to be activated. Moreover, it would only be activated for a short period of time. Yi Guqin. As expected, I overestimated you. Xian Hao shook his head slightly. However, at this moment, whoosh! A figure flew over from the sky. It was Yi Guqin. He had brought Mu Xingzhu with him as he soared into the sky and arrived at the scene. Yi Guqin. Xian Hao's eyes were cold. Yi Guqin's expression was calm. His gaze was indifferent as he confronted the disciples of the various forces. In an instant, the atmosphere was frozen and suffocating. Chapter 330. At the core of the Void Sword Realm, the teleportation formation gradually glowed. The surrounding void was vibrating, and spatial cracks appeared from time to time, like the giant mouth of a ferocious beast. It was frightening. Obviously, the Void Sword Realm was about to close, and the teleportation formation would soon be activated, and it would only be activated for a short period of time. However, Xian Hao and the others stood outside the teleportation formation, looking coldly at Yi Guqin and Mu Xingzu. Yi Guqin's gaze swept across the people of the 7 major forces. Apart from Ji Ling, Zither Fairy and his companions, the other elites of the various forces had a faint fear in their eyes. There were also some geniuses who had a grudge against Yi Guqin. While they looked fearful, there was also hatred in their eyes. All of this was because Yiguchen's previous performance was too shocking, and it made them tremble in fear. If they didn't know that Yiguchen had such strength because he had consumed the mad demon burning blood elixir, none of them would have dared to step forward to stop him. Yiguchen, I am indeed surprised that you are still alive after consuming the mad demon burning blood elixir. However, you should be unable to use your true qi now. Xian Hao's gaze was deep and solemn. At the same time, there was a faint killing intent in his voice. He, Xian Hao, had dominated the Saint Origin dynasty. He had never suffered a great loss even when facing the double-crown king of the land of 5 elements barbarian tribe. However, he had been pushed back by Yiguchen, and even coughed up blood. To Xian Hao, this was a stain in his heart that could not be erased. Moreover, many of his opportunities had been taken away by Yiguchen. All of this made Xian Hao want to kill Yiguchen. Not only Xian Hao, there were many people who wanted to kill Yiguchen. Murong Ditian, Ji Yan, Mo Juechen, Shintu Miao, Prince Yuani. At this moment, their gazes were extremely cold, like sharp swords that pierced towards Yiguchen. Everyone present could sense that Yiguchen's entire body no longer had a trace of true energy fluctuation. Not only that, the feeling that Yiguchen gave them now was even weaker than before he took the mad demon blood ignition pill. Yiguchen is already an arrow at the end of its flight. It will be difficult for him to continue fighting. That's right. Yiguchen won't be able to escape today. Just surrender. Those who had been apprehensive and fearful of Yiguchen immediately relaxed when they saw that Yiguchen seemed to be unable to fight. They believed that Yiguchen was already a turtle in a jar. Noisy. Yiguchen frowned and shouted coldly. Although there was no trace of genuine qi, that terrifying killing intent caused the disciples of the various powers, who had just heaved a sigh of relief, to involuntarily retreat as sweat dripped down their faces. This was the momentum that Yiguchen had created. Now, in everyone's eyes, he wasn't just the sword master. More like a demon. A sword demon who had killed 100 people with a single sword. Yiguchen, you are indeed an opponent that I can't help but admire. If possible, Xian Hao would be willing to sit down with you and drink 300 cups of wine and discuss the Tao with the sword. Unfortunately, I'm destined to not have this opportunity. Xian Hao shook his head slightly as his long black and white hair fluttered in the wind. You will have this opportunity. Yiguchen said with a deep gaze. Oh, could it be that you still have some tricks up your sleeve in this situation? Even if you still have a mad demon blood ignition pill, you will definitely die if you dare to take it. Xian Hao's gaze seemed to be able to see through Yiguchen. He wasn't afraid of Yiguchen, but he also didn't want Yiguchen to risk his life and drag him down with him. I don't have a second mad demon blood ignition pill. Yiguchen shook his head slightly. As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding people who were vigilant heaved a sigh of relief. Yiguchen, this void sword realm will be your burial ground. Mo Juechen's tone was as cold as ice. Murong Ditian and the others also looked at Yiguchen as though they were looking at a dead man. Under such circumstances, they didn't think that Yiguchen would be able to turn the tables. Senior brother Yi. Mu Xingzu, who was standing at the side, felt very uncomfortable. Yiguchen was a true sword grandmaster and had the pride of a sword cultivator. However, he had now been forced into a corner by a group of despicable people. This made Mu Xingzu feel as though her heart was being pierced by a knife. She felt that it was all her fault. Xingzhu, when the teleportation array is activated later, go directly to Ji-Ling and the others and let them protect you. Yiguchen lowered his voice. Then what about you, senior brother Yi? Mu Xingzu's heart clenched. I said before that you don't have to worry about me. Yiguchen's gaze was cold. A solemn atmosphere pervaded the air. As time passed, the light from the teleportation array became more and more intense. At the same time, the surrounding void vibrated more and more frequently, and pitch-black spatial cracks started to spread out. Rumble. The teleportation array lit up. Yiguchen, it's over. Xian Hao and the others didn't delay any longer and immediately attacked. Apart from the inner yard, Jiu Xian sect, Zither Fairy, and the others, the rest of the people rushed towards Yiguchen and Mu Xingzu. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth churned, and the sound of wind breaking could be heard continuously. Under the encirclement of so many people, Yiguchen and Mu Xingzu, who had lost their true qi, had no way to retreat. Xingzhu, let's go. Yiguchen said softly. At the same time, a translucent pearl appeared from between his eyebrows. It was the child pearl that Ying Ning had separated from the indestructible soul pearl. Mu Xingzu's primordial soul transformation is already in my hands. Can you snatch it from me? Yiguchen shouted coldly. At the same time, the child pearl emitted a ring of vigorous spiritual energy. This. In an instant, the disciples of the various factions who were rushing over were stunned. Mu Xingzu took advantage of this gap to unleash all her true qi and rushed towards Ji Ling and the others. At this moment, the teleportation array was completely activated, and a dazzling light soared and turned into a pillar of light. However, the teleportation array seemed to be a little unstable, and the surrounding void vibrated violently, and spatial cracks spread out. Forget it, let's capture and kill Yiguchen first. After a moment of hesitation, the crowd continued to rush towards Yiguchen. In their opinion, Yiguchen was already unable to escape. Yiguchen. On the other side, Ji Ling and the others were shocked. They wanted to take action, but Bai Zichen and the others would rather watch coldly from the sidelines than lend a shred of strength. Senior brother Yi. Mu Xingzu's tears flowed. Ah, do you think you have me? Yiguchen smiled faintly as he looked at the crowd that was rushing towards him. For some reason, Xian Hao stopped immediately when he saw the smile on Yiguchen's face, and his eyelids twitched violently. No, Yiguchen is too calm. Xian Hao frowned. At this moment, Yiguchen's origin ring flashed, and two items landed in his hands. It was a fist-sized purple crystal. And a silver jade talisman. That's the jade talisman that contains the extreme void dark thunder. Xian Hao's pupils constricted, and he instinctively retreated. Not only Xian Hao, but Prince Yuanyi, Fang Chen, Nia Ling, Mo Juechen, and the others also sensed that something was wrong. However, most of them still rushed towards Yiguchen, their eyes burning with desire as they dreamed of seizing the opportunity. I should be the one to say it's over. Yiguchen smiled coldly and crushed the purple crystal and the silver jade talisman. The purple crystal contained the purple lightning nether thunder. The silver jade talisman contained the extreme void dark thunder. Under the gaze of Xian Hao and the other elites, Yiguchen held the two balls of lightning that were about to burst out. With a cold smile on his face, he put them together with a loud bang. In an instant, the world fell silent. In another instant, there was a loud boom, as if thunder had just broken out. Endless waves of lightning burst forth, drowning the world. Chapter 331. The heavenly variant lightning was a violent energy born from the heavens and earth. The energy contained in every type of heavenly variant lightning was extremely terrifying. It was also because of this that violent things like the heavenly variant lightning were almost impossible to contain. This was also the reason why the former Qin Aoshi did not absorb the purple lightning nether lightning into his body after obtaining it. Because he already had the 9 heavens Xian lightning. Unless his cultivation was raised to a terrifying level, he would not be able to contain 2 types of heavenly variant lightning. Moreover, there were not many people who would think of merging the heavenly variant lightning. If such berserk objects were to collide with each other, the power and destructiveness of the collision would be immeasurable. Just like what Yiguchen was doing now. That violent explosion was like the rumbling of thunder when the heavens and earth were first created. When the disciples of the forces who were charging towards Yiguchen saw that Yiguchen had merged the 2 types of heavenly variant lightning together, their faces were immediately filled with horror. Lunatic, this Yiguchen is a lunatic. Run, damn it! Everyone let out a roar of horror as if they had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. All of you shall be buried together. Yiguchen closed his eyes. Boom! Indescribably terrifying lightning swept out like a wave of 10,000 miles. That terrifying wave of lightning tore the earth apart, caused the void to tremble, and caused the sky to change color. This was a huge explosion, a huge destruction. Retreat! Even Xian Hao was extremely shocked. In an instant, the Xian Yin and Xian Yang mystical rune divine weapons were placed in front of him to defend against the terrifying wave of lightning. Puchi! Even so, Xian Hao's figure was still fiercely pushed back as he spat out blood. Even his sleeves were instantly turned into ashes, and his arm was charred black. Even Xian Hao, who was in the 9 transformations of the godly soul, was in such a sorry state. Murong Ditian's face was filled with horror as he blocked the Mara sword in front of him. He was also hit by the extremely terrifying wave of lightning and was heavily injured as he spat out mouthfuls of blood. No! As for Xianing, Xian Mo, and the other disciples of the Sun Moon Hall, they all let out miserable cries. Their bodies were directly submerged in the purple and silver lightning. Their bodies were charred black and their lives were taken away in an instant. They did not even have a chance to resist. Not only was the limitless sword sect like this, the disciples of the other powers all let out mournful cries amidst this world-destroying lightning tide. On the side of the 3 imperial palaces, almost all the disciples were instantly drowned by the thunder tide, their bodies torn apart by the lightning. Even Ji Yan, who was known as one of the 3 little emperors, was unable to resist the terrifying impact of the 2 types of strange lightning. His face was distorted as he let out a miserable howl. His body was completely torn apart. Little Flame Emperor, Ji Yan, was dead. As for the disciples of the Sealed Blade Royal Hall, they were also swept into it. Nia Ling, Mo Juechen, and Shintu Miao rapidly retreated. Each of them was struck by the lightning tide, and they vomited blood as though it was free. They had used all sorts of life-saving methods. As for Zhou Yan, Yan Kun, and the other disciples of the Heavenly Saber List, as well as the other disciples of the Sealed Blade Royal Hall, they were not so lucky. They could not resist the terrifying impact and were directly torn apart by the violent lightning. Their flesh and blood exploded. The remaining disciples of the Saint Origin Academy were almost completely annihilated. Prince Yuani's body was charred black. He had almost died and fainted. Yiguchen deserves to die. Young Marquis Fengchen spat out large mouthfuls of blood. His appearance was as miserable as it could be. He grabbed the half-dead Prince Yuani and quickly retreated. In an instant, there were several hundred disciples of the various powers that charged towards Yiguchen. Most of them were killed in an instant. Only a few supreme geniuses were barely able to return to the teleportation formation. However, they were all severely injured. It was a tragic sight. On the other hand, the Sword Sect Pagoda, the 9 Profound Sect, and the Zither Fairies group were not affected too much because they were within the teleportation formation. However, when they saw the destructive lightning tide, their hearts trembled. Mu Xingzu's tears fell like rain as she looked at Yiguchen's figure at the center of the lightning tide. Rumble. The teleportation formation was activated and the void shook. At the same time, the terrifying lightning tide burst forth and the surrounding void became unstable. In the core area where Yiguchen was located, the space was torn apart by the thunder tide, revealing a pitch-black spatial crack. Yiguchen's figure, which was submerged in the lightning tide, was directly sucked into the pitch-black spatial crack. Senior Brother Yi. Mu Xingzu let out a heart-wrenching scream. She could not help but want to rush out of the teleportation formation. Mu Xingzu, don't let him down. Ji Ling held back her tears and hugged Mu Xingzu tightly, not letting her leave. No. Mu Xingzu was heartbroken. If Yiguchen was only submerged in the lightning tide, Mu Xingzu still had a glimmer of hope. But if she was sucked into the spatial turbulence, there was almost no chance of survival. Not to mention someone with Yiguchen's cultivation, even a spiritual bridge of heaven and earth expert would not have a chance of survival if they were sucked into the spatial turbulence. Damn it. Xian Hao, who was in the teleportation formation, looked gloomy. Not only did he not get the opportunity, but he was also put in such a difficult situation by Yiguchen. As for the rest, although they hated Yiguchen to the core. But when they saw Yiguchen being sucked into the spatial crack, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. The sword demon, who made them tremble in fear, was finally dead. Boom! The teleportation formation burst out with intense light and sent the group out of the void sword realm. And here, as Yiguchen was sucked into the spatial crack, the two-colored lightning tide with destructive fluctuations also dissipated. Only the cracked and broken earth and hundreds of charred bones were left. These bones were all the elites of the seven forces. It could be imagined that what happened in the Void Sword realm would definitely set off a huge storm in the seven forces and even the Saint Origin dynasty. Outside the Void Sword realm, Floating Mountain. The floating mountain, which had been silent for a month, suddenly erupted with a roar and the surrounding void was like water ripples. At the foot of the floating mountain stood more than 10 figures. Among them, there were old men, middle-aged men, and charming women. They were the elders of the seven forces. Among these people, the two inner school elders, Qing He and Gu Tua, were among them. Ha! Today should be the day when the Void Sword realm closes. I wonder what kind of opportunity Xian Hao will get. Among these people, an old man in a black and white Taoist robe said with a smile. He was an elder of the Limitless Sword Sect's Sun Moon Hall, called Xian Gu. If that girl Yan Wushuang is willing to come, I'm afraid Xian Hao won't get any benefits, Qing He said coldly. The Limitless Sword Sect and the Sword Sect's Tower Forest were like fire and water. I wonder what the disciples of the three imperial palaces have gotten? An elder of the three imperial palaces chuckled. One of the three little princes of the three imperial palaces, Ji Yan, is among them. With his strength, he must have gotten a great opportunity. Unfortunately, my Consonance Palace's Heaven's Pride, Lu Qinghan, did not come. I'm afraid Pan Shuelyan and Zither Fairy won't be able to compete with you. A charming woman chuckled. She was an elder of the Consonance Palace. The kids of my Consonance Blade King Palace aren't bad either, the middle-aged man from the Consonance Blade King Palace said in a low, muffled voice. With the young Marquis Fang Chen here, the Crown Prince and the others should have gotten something as well, a golden-robed elder of the Saint Origin Academy said with a faint smile. Obviously, he was very confident in his sect's Heaven's Pride. Just as the elders of the seven major forces were waiting, rays of light surged outside the floating mountain and figures finally came out. The one who rushed out was Xian Hao. Xian Hao has come out, Xian Gu said with a smile. He was about to go up and ask Xian Hao what he had gotten. However, in the next moment, Xian Gu's smile froze. Not only that, the elders of the other forces also widened their eyes in disbelief as if they had seen a ghost. Their gazes were fixed on Xian Hao, who was in a sorry state. How is this possible? Xian Gu was shocked. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.